Is that why Mrs. Burke is
Welcome,
here?
Mr. O'Sullivan.
Hey, Mr. Cutter, how are you? I have copies, I don't know if you folks have it.
Thank you. I do, but thank you for the paper copy.
Hey, no problem.
Thank you.
And I only have 7.
We can share.
I'm sorry, I'm in, so.
I have it up on mine if you need.
I'm going to actually project it since the links are being a problem.
It's all the way up.
Oh, it's coming through this way?
Right by your feet
over,
there, yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome, great. So good evening, folks. Really grateful for the opportunity to chat about establishing a Litchfield Middle School lacrosse program at LMS. Really excited. There's a lot of energy and momentum towards that, and this has been a long time coming for a lot of us to come here and to propose to you this this chance to grow the sport within the town. Quick introduction, my name is Mike O'Sullivan. I, like a number of other folks behind me, are here and have been involved in the Litchfield Lacrosse Association for years. I'm currently the president of the Litchfield Lacrosse Association, and we're really excited about bringing the sport to us, to the town, and to continue the success that we've seen, especially at CHS. They've had some terrific season last year, both boys and girls, and we want to continue to grow that by establishing this program. So, quick agenda. I wanted to kind of give some highlights of the sport if you're unfamiliar, followed by some testimonials for some students, some really brave students that have come here to share their passion for the sport. We'll go over the, cover some of the highlights of the proposal, and go over some of its content, and then definitely want to give as much time for Q&A. I'm sure you folks have questions. So, okay, so high level, so lacrosse is known as the fastest sport on 2 feet. A great blend, the sport offers a great blend for students and student athletes of not only physicality, lots of cardio, lots of opportunities for creativity. It can be shared, obviously, for both genders, boys and girls. Have their each different sports. I would offer that the boys are have the physical game, and the girls have probably the more skilled game, quite frankly.
Okay.
And honestly, and it's fun to watch our students, our children, thrive in the sport. And if I didn't mention, I have 3 kids in the school district, 2 of which play lacrosse in the town as well. Couple other things. It's one of the fastest growing sports in the country. I know there's a good dozen or more. I think 2 dozen or more in New Hampshire. There's established programs at the middle school level. We have a list of those teams if you ever care to look at who has a program within the area, but also. At the college level, it's growing as well. Opportunities are opening, especially at the local area. Locally, there's, I know Merrimack College recently, which is just north in northern Massachusetts, as well as Boston University, both open programs recently, and quite frankly, their success is so great. BU has a nationally ranked program within like 4 years, which is pretty impressive. To me, it shows the growth of the sport. And one other element I want to talk about, I think the history is needs to be and should be appreciated by all. It's been here. It's been a sport that has been established by indigenous tribes in North America for centuries. So well before baseball, well before football, and some of our favorites, basketball. The sport has been celebrated. And one thing that I like to share, and it's really important, is that in the Iroquois tribes, another piece of history, in central New York, used the sport as a way to settle disputes and differences between each tribe. Rather than go to combat and war, that is one way that they resolve these issues, and for them it's very spiritual. and not to get into it, but it's a pretty impressive history behind it. But let's not hear from me, who thinks it's great, and I can talk to you forever how fantastic the sport is. Let's hear from some of the students themselves. First up, I have Leah Mahoney and Lily Vachon, who have a few words to share.
Hi, I'm Lily, and this is Leah. We are both 7th grade lacrosse players. Thank you for taking the time to listen to us on why we think lacrosse is important to our school. We think that we should have a school team for many reasons. If this year we can have a school team, it would put many smiles on many lacrosse players' faces. I love to play lacrosse, and it's one of the sports I've enjoyed the most. We enjoy playing with everyone, but we could come close to not having lots of players. If we have a school team, people will prioritize it and go to the games and practices.
It would benefit if we had a school team, not just for the school team, but for the town. If we had a school team, lacrosse would be very liked and many people would play, especially people that want to play a sport but can't find the right one to play. We think that if we have a school team, many players would join and play for many years. Lacrosse is really fun and easy learning sport to play. That's why we think we should have a lacrosse team, school team. My bad.
Well done, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And also, I'd like to offer the opportunity to Mr. Sage Anktel to share his words as well from the boys' side.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sage.
Hi, my name is Sage Anktel, and I'm in 8th grade. I've been playing lacrosse since I was 5 years old. I've always been the youngest one on my team, and so having a school lacrosse team this year would mean a lot to me to finally be able to be a mentor in the sport and help younger players grow and help be a bigger part of my school's community. And I think that lacrosse has some of the strongest team building of any of the sports that are out there. I mean, I've played soccer and track and cross country and football, and in none of them I felt the same connection to my teammates that I have in lacrosse. Like, my team that I've played with for all these years in town lacrosse is really like family to me, and some of my best memories from my life come from lacrosse. Being able to share new moments with my school community would mean the world to me, and I would love to be able to have this experience to help foster a love of the sport that will stay with my school after I move on to the high school. And yeah.
Thank you, Sage.
Well spoken.
Good job.
These boys and Sage, Leah, and Lily clearly have been ambassadors to the sport. They've been very supportive, and they've obviously, and really appreciate their sharing their passion and some words with the team here. So thank you. Thank you, kids, for doing that. Awesome job. Next, I would like to go into and dive into the proposal. Just a few highlights. So we've worked very closely with Jen Grantham as well as Dan DeFournay and Josh Knight to create this proposal. The template that we used was the same one used by CHS, I think it was like 8 years ago or so. So clearly that was a success as well.
And you're following that format, self-funded for a certain amount, okay.
Yes, ma'am. So
I was there for that one.
Yep, so that's how I was gonna dive right into that. You beat me to the punch.
Sorry.
We intend this to be self-funded as long as it needs to be. And particularly, we intend to have a partial program, partial season, starting this coming spring for to ensure that can achieve that goal. We have established a nonprofit booster club called Litchfield Lynx Lacrosse Booster Club. We couldn't pass up the opportunity for alliteration, so we put a lot of L's in there.
Triple L, yeah. That's what I.
Yeah, I got to come up with a good, quicker way of explaining it. But that has been established. We are forming it right now. We're forming the board members, if you will, the Booster Club leadership, to ensure that this program is a success. We intend this Booster Club to be primarily a funding arm for this program. We do not want to tell the school board or the school itself, who to hire, how to run the program, but we will be there in an advisory role, especially as we pick up this season and get it started. Our goal is to have a partial season this year. That would be essentially a full month of practices with 4 to 5 scrimmages. Dan Dufournet is well aware of this, and he's coordinating that schedule for each team to have those scrimmages and scrimmages only. It just wasn't enough time to have a full season. And then with the intent, assuming there's success, and we believe there's going to be success, we think it's going to be if you build it, they will come scenario. And that by next year, 2023 to 2024, there will be a full. Oh, is my time up?
No, I just fell off the little thing. It's new. It's like a new toy up here. Sorry.
That's
I'm ready to vote right now. You don't have to go on.
Okay. Okay, so if we're ready to vote, happy to.
Does anyone have any further
I
questions?
do have a question.
I do too.
Okay.
Jen, you were on the mission of bringing lacrosse to CHS. How many years did that team self-fund before being adopted into the budget?
Sure, so just for clarification purposes, I was not a member of
It was
the-
Mike Boschi.
Oh, okay.
Nope, it was Joe Rose. So
Oh, that's right.
I did not bring
Okay.
that. I joined the board
Okay.
about a year later.
Yeah.
They self-funded for 5 years.
Okay.
I think it is a valid question though, because this is the first self-funded program at the
Middle school.
Yeah.
And so whether it's a 3-year or a 5-year, that would be up to you guys to decide.
Okay, thank you.
Practices, right? I think the benefit of LMS today, and I think about the sports happening in the proximity of LMS, right? Yes, softball and baseball are typically cutting through the woods to get to the fields down at GMS, right?
Yeah.
Here, the practices are either on the Litchfield, I get that, but also Dara, Sawmill, CHS. How are we transporting the kids to those various fields?
Yeah, so I think so Jen's going to help me with that.
So middle school boys and girls soccer, they hitch a ride to the high school
Okay.
at Campbell, and then they walk over to Dara when they have to go there.
The bus runs already run from LMS to CHS
Okay.
in the natural flow of things, so they would be able to just.
Hitch a ride. That's what I said. Hitch a ride. Okay, cool.
Valid question. We don't want kids walking across the street, clearly.
Yeah, yeah. Any impact to other sports because
Was
of a new
baseball?
program?
Would be
Yeah.
baseball.
So will there be anticipated less enrollment?
That's for the other sports, not lacrosse.
Right.
Perhaps, but I think there is. I don't know, Jen, if you guys had thoughts on that. There is concern
So
about that.
we've had a lengthy conversation with our athletic director in regards to what that would look like, and the way that we're envisioning this is just going to be more opportunity for more kids to belong and get involved. So for example, for basketball, I think there were 58 to 60 kids who tried out for the boys basketball team, and you cut it down to a roster of 20, that's 40 kids without an opportunity to play.
The high school lacrosse team had more kids than the football team. The boys team did.
My question is more about budgets, right? And programs that are funded
Yeah.
in the budget because now we have less enrollment. Are
Baseball
those
and
sports that are going to be
softball,
impacted
is that all
we
that
don't carry
runs in the
budget?
spring? Baseball and
It's track,
softball
baseball,
and track?
softball, and track. Right.
Yeah, look, lacrosse is huge in town. You've done a great job, Coach, training the younger kids and kind of getting the program established and going. So kudos to you for that. I think this makes a lot of sense.
I just have a random question.
Go ahead.
I know when my child started playing, his helmet was like $300 when he was in 8th grade, and he's now 19. I can't even, it probably cost $500, because my thought is we always protect the head and the teeth. But are you gonna require a certain minimum of, like, equipment?
So it's not our
Okay.
requirement.
Okay.
It is a U.S.
Yeah.
US
Lacrosse
lacrosse.
is gonna,
Yeah, so as far as, so there will be requirements. Boys and girls have different requirements.
Yeah,
The girls just
Special
usually
chest
goggles.
protectors.
yeah, the chest things are new to me, yeah.
And the boys, and generally speaking, so historically, this sport is, the boys, the equipment is not, it is not cheap, right? There is a basic amount that you have to have. You need a stick, you need pads, and you need a helmet. Historically, depending on the school district, sometimes the helmets are funded, but that's not been the case for CHS. They get their own helmets. It's probably best because then you can get a good fit, and obviously really important to protect it. What I want to share is that we know that there may be an affordability issue with this sport, and the Litchfield Lacrosse Board, sorry, the LLBC, triple LBC, is prepared to help with those families, okay? And we intend to provide support. We're already looking at hand-me-downs from previous players. We're going to try to start a program of a reused equipment, and
I might have
I
a
was
long
gonna say
pole
like
for
a
you.
ski swap for lacrosse.
we'll take
But
it.
it's true, I mean, poles are
definitely.
$500,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, but once you have that stuff, once you have it, you're usually good for several years.
It lasted all the way through high school,
Oh, yeah.
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 Madam
And-
Chairman?
So
Yes,
one
yeah.
question I have is, what has to be raised by when to move forward with this year? Because it's quite a bit of money.
Yeah, so I think that has to do with a plan that we need to establish with, was it SAU or?
So we would need to understand from the business administrator when our payment would be due by. But I believe it's about $8,000 that would need to be established.
Yeah, we think, so on the back of the sheet that I provided has a budget, which we intend to ensure that the funding is available. We have, we have a plan in place to make sure that we have the right funding. Timing of it's gonna be important to us. And I will share that the Litchfield Lacrosse Association is prepared to provide a sizable donation to start us.
Fantastic.
It won't be the full amount that you see in front of you, but it's gonna be able to really get us jump started.
That's
And
fantastic.
through the course of the year and preparation for next year, we'll have events in place in other ways, revenue stream, if you will, to
Yeah.
ensure the funding is there.
I have a question about insurance as well. Would you be insured through the school district, or would it go through LLL,
BC.
BC?
So yeah, it's gonna have to, I think it's gonna be advisable we have it through the school district, given that that affiliation's being established, and, I don't know, Jen, Grantham, you had any thoughts on that, if that's your area?
Do we
I do
know?
not know the answer to that question.
Okay. We haven't,
I would think
Any
since it's a
idea how it-
club, that
Yeah.
it would go through the school district. I mean, I can
Yeah.
double check on that, but that would be what my assumption would be. We would cover that cost of insurance.
or would they pay for it through the district?
I don't think necessarily we're gonna go up in cost of
That
insurance.
was my question,
So
yeah.
I doubt we would go up.
Okay.
So I just will share that Litchfield Lacrosse Association has its own insurance that we
Yeah.
pay, and if the town can absorb that, if there's anything to absorb, that would be an ideal
Do you have a
scenario.
binder to share? I want to say we shared a binder with wrestling at one point, their insurance binder. You know what, you can work this out
That's
with
if you're
Doug.
holding
Okay.
your insurance
Madam Chairman,
yourself.
I am pleased to make a motion to approve a self-funded lacrosse program for LMS for 3 years? Is that what we're saying? Do we have to put a year stipulation on it?
Always has been 5 years for the
It's
high
always been
school.
5 years? Okay. Madam Chairman?
Maybe that's
Yes.
a maybe we
Yes.
don't state the years right now, and it becomes a policy discussion.
I'm not sure the best way
Right.
to motion that.
My suggestion would be that you just approve the proposal as written, and we'll monitor it on a yearly basis. For example, I don't think this is gonna happen, history hasn't shown this, but if all of a sudden the baseball team has 6 players, we have to have a conversation, right? So I think if you just approve that and say we'll monitor that annually, and you'll know the right time to
Yes.
All right. Madam Chairman, I'm pleased to
Yes.
make a motion to approve the LMS self-funded lacrosse program as proposed this evening.
And I am pleased to second it, Mr. Cutter. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Invite us to some of your games.
Oh,
And I know it
absolutely.
has been years in the making.
Yep, no.
Yes, this is only
Before
good.
COVID.
All right.
So I'm
El-
sure we will catch up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice
Well
job.
done.
Thanks, kiddos.
Holidays, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
At this point, I'd like to invite Mrs. Grantham up for her LMS presentation.
Awesome. Well, I'm hopefully going to go quickly because I know it's December 14th and the holidays are here and we'd like to be mindful of our time. I have with me today Laura Dion. Come on up, Laura. Okay. We'll start right with you. Some color.
Nice.
So,
I feel like that's appropriate.
except you just don't want to right in front of your face because then you're not going to be on this. So Laura is our wonderful new art teacher at LMS this year. She comes to us with years of experience from Pennington, and she has done an amazing job to bring new and different activities to the art room. And the students have really engaged in the practice of art and are excited about art. And so I wanted her to be able to come and kind of talk a little bit about what she's been doing. And one of the things that you may or may not have seen on our Facebook page is a big project that the kids undertook to beautify the art room. I mean, if you had been in the LMS art room, it was a lot of cabinets and counters. And you might not have access to that document. We realized that it was
Okay.
not shared 100% correctly and couldn't fix it here. So
That's okay.
if you look at the Facebook page and check out the art room design that was posted it was back in October,
Yeah, we
November.
were done before conferences.
Yep.
So
So I'll turn the floor over
Sure.
to you. Talk a little bit about what you did.
thank you. So yeah, bringing my kind of expertise and my energy to LMS, and the art room just looked it didn't look like an art room. It looked very bland, I'll say. So we had been studying color with my 8th graders. We had done color wheels, color mixing, talking about tints, shades, and the students had got to make their own paintings. And I thought, I have this space between the windows. This is the perfect space to create a mural with these kids and use all the color knowledge that we just learned and applied in this individual color wheel to this community application. So
I'm just going to walk around and show
okay,
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
You're going to see what great slides she has.
Sorry, you guys. So the kids were really receptive. They were really excited. They did make sure they're like, Mrs. Dion, did you get permission? I said, wall. I said, yes, we're going to paint right on. Okay, I asked Mrs. Grantham.
The principal's office.
Yeah. So we looked at some different ideas, talked about it as a group. I have first period and second period. So I was kind of collaborating with first period, translating that to second period, what we talked about, and everybody kind of came together on this decision. So we created this tape design mural, and the kids did a fabulous job. They did a fabulous job working together, helping each other. They did all the taping. All I taped out was the kind of perimeter, if you will, like of the edge to the window, and they did the rest. So I said, think about having small spaces, big spaces, to create interest, and think about what colors you're using. And I had some girls that were like, it should all be pink. And I said, well, we can have a lot of pink, but when we have those dark greens, then our pinks really pop. So we want to think about that. So they did a great job. We worked the week together, and we had the unveiling, if you will, peeling all the tape off. The kids were so excited. The first period, I said, you guys can't peel all the tape. You have to save some tape.
Yeah, right.
So we peeled all the tape, and then it really was just like this wow moment. And it is fabulous. I've had so many kids just come by and want to see it. The kids were coming by after second period. We want to see like what they added. But now even just like the staff are really appreciative and just want to come by and look.
I will say when the kids were doing the project, they were so excited. and engaged and really almost physically dragging Mrs. Thayer and myself into the art room. You gotta see what we're doing. You guys, we're painting on the walls. I said, that's great as long as you're painting carefully and it looks great. And it really, I can't say enough of it becoming a space. Again, we're talking all about this year, kids feeling that sense of belonging. And Mrs. Dion, this is just kind of embodying what we're talking about, because kids need to belong in sports and in the arts. And this is just that great blend this evening and kind of talk about both and where we are.
Color in the art room, awesome.
Yeah, and color like everywhere. There's a joke at my house: if you stand still too long, you're gonna get painted. There are these beautiful yarn wrap sticks when you come in, like to the main office. We've got those. I just put out some 3D folk art animals my sixth graders made. There are masks in the library. And Mrs. Provenzel commented that the kids, when they use that pass-through, they're like, "Oh, look at what I made." I had them bring little tented name tags so they could have it ownership of their mask. And
Mr. Cutter, we're still due a walkthrough.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Ooh, yeah, leave your door open.
So I think that's just another example of the energy and excitement that Mrs. Dion is bringing. Is there's art everywhere in the building, and what makes kids proud is seeing their work on display. And the fact that those sticks, I literally walked out the front door on my way here and I grabbed a can of sticks and I said, here's an example of art on display. And it's really great to see the kids are excited about it. And we wanted to bring it because it is a spotlight on awesome.
Thank you.
thank you.
And you were doing a lot of painting on the candy cane this week too.
Yes.
That's later in my report for
Okay.
sure, but yes.
Came up
Jumping
in
ahead.
the UA meeting, and I told Martha, I said, if you need a candy cane, let me know. And she was like, the next morning, she was like, I think I really like that idea. I need a candy cane. I'm like, okay.
So we'll go ahead and jump ahead to that. I can't even say I literally have goosebumps, not because I'm cold sitting here and talking about this, but our giving tree this year, oh my goodness. Oh, tears to my eyes, so excited. The kids have been so excited, and the outpouring from the Litchfield school community is incredible. In years past, we've had around 20 kids who were referred to the LMS Giving Tree. For those of you that don't know what it is, it's that opportunity to give to families in need. And it's been a tradition at LMS for, I think, almost as long as it's been opened, from what I can tell. But this year, when we got that list, we had 32 kids on the list. So an additional 12 names that we hadn't raised for in the past. And so we set a lofty goal, we felt, of $2,000 to kind of divide amongst those students. And, you know, we made announcements each morning and afternoon. We kind of talked to the kids about the candy cane of where we were and what we had raised so far. And as of last Thursday afternoon, we had $1,700 raised. And I made an announcement and I said, basically, kids, if everybody brings in $1 tomorrow, we're going to meet our goal of $2,000 and be able to really help out those families. And someone in the traffic line heard it, picked it up, shared that out with the community.
I saw it.
And we ended up with $2,905 the next day.
That's awesome.
So we surpassed our goal. Our little elves went out shopping. Crushed it. And the elves went out shopping, and the thing is that we're going to have smiles on kids' faces this holiday season, and we're really grateful for that. And our Unified Arts team did an awesome job supporting that as well.
Thank you.
Speaking of supporting awesome things from the Unified Arts team, if you haven't seen already, we are going to be part of the Wreaths Across America activity that we had been fundraising for. So this coming Monday, during our best time, we're going to be taking a walk over to Pinecrest Cemetery with the Litchfield Veterans Association, and we have wreaths to lay on the graves in Pinecrest. And there's going to be a little ceremony with the band and the Veterans Association. We're really proud of that, and permission slips have gone home for that already. Anybody that doesn't want to walk or doesn't feel as though that's an appropriate place to go, there'll be opportunities for them to stay back at school and still have a great best opportunity. But we just thought the kids worked so hard on a fundraising activity. It has purpose, it has meaning, it has tied into curriculum. And it's going to be about I think we counted a 6-minute walk over and a 6-minute walk back, and maybe about a 10 to 15 minute activity out there.
So they might want a coat instead of a sweatshirt?
It's middle school.
Just a
Coat, what's a coat?
a coat. Yeah, I've heard that, yeah. Just a suggestion.
I'm going to tell you, I was very proud of my middle schooler because I have an 8th grader in my household, and she wanted a jacket this year. She said all the cool kids are wearing jackets this year.
Maybe
so.
she has a recess monitor who said, you're going outside, I don't care.
Not with 7th grade, I'll tell you that.
But that's a wonderful gesture.
Yep.
That's fabulous.
Very exciting. Do you have any questions for Mrs. Diane, and then I'll finish very quickly?
No, just a
you.
comment that the I believe in the budget, we have a kiln servicing in there too, so you wanna fire that up again.
I would love to, and
We'd like to not fire it up. We just put
Yeah,
construction just took
yeah.
place. Let's
Just
not
like,
fire.
let's, check it, and, that'll go over real
Yes,
good.
that's a
like,
good
oh,
idea. Yeah.
Litchfield resident burns down,
Can I ask you a question?
yeah.
Have you had a chance to collaborate with Mrs. Freeman at all at the high school?
So I met her. She sought me out like those first couple days when we were back,
Good.
and just wanted to introduce herself and make herself available to me. So
Yeah, I saw they have some nice kiln work up there too.
yeah. So
Great.
yeah.
She's also been awesome at sharing. In the art room has a great storage closet with lots of materials and papers and things that were there. If you have not heard of our Best of the Best competitions, this month Best of the Best is door decorating like we did last year. And I know Mrs. Diane has made many a material and resource available to the students to be able to.
Like a grab and go station, so the kids have been coming in. They don't need to they can come in while I'm teaching, and they know that area is available and just take what they need. And please, if you come see the mural, come see the closet. Dr. Jetty, next time I would love to show you the closet.
I saw it. No, I saw it. It's awesome.
It's part of the regular tour.
Yeah.
It is. We get, look at this art closet.
Yeah, I was very proud of myself. So.
Yeah,
very
that was
proud of you.
I just
big
think it's
undertaking.
awesome under construction how much color and life you're bringing to the building during a time period where it could be pretty dreary, and it's not. So I think that's wonderful.
How do you top it next year with another mural on the wall?
Well, I got the green light here. She's like, all right, think about this. We'll do a list.
We're thinking.
I'm game.
Excellent.
Yeah.
There's lots of walls. There's lots of
Doorways.
Well done.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. You're all set.
Okay.
I appreciate you coming.
Absolutely. I'll take this with me. Okay, I'll see you in the morning.
All right. See you in the morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm not going to go over my whole report, but I did want to take a moment to kind of talk about and highlight where we are today in regards to construction, because I know that it's been a lot. It's been a lot for teachers. It's been a lot for students. It's been a lot for administrators. It's been a lot for parents. And we really have appreciated the perseverance and the grit that everybody is exhibiting. This current phase that we're under is the reason that I sat here last spring and talked to you about moving the 8th grade to the high school. If you heard about stacked classes and kids on top of each other and lots of people together in rooms, yep, they definitely have been. We had, coming back from Thanksgiving vacation, we had 8 classrooms displaced. We thought we were going to have 6, and we ended up with 8. And literally every single space in our building was occupied at all times. If you haven't come in and seen Martha and I, we're even in the same office together so that we had an additional space to be able to utilize for staff, for phone calls, privacy, different issues that were arising. So this short and temporary, super uncomfortable stint is ongoing. The good news that we received from North Branch today is that, we got 2 classes back shortly after Thanksgiving vacation. So the 2 that were in the first phase, or not the first phase, but the first phase of this phase, the first phase of construction that were on a cart after Thanksgiving vacation in 6th grade and 5th grade. Both of those classrooms are back in their home base and working from that location. And we'll be getting 3 8th grade classes back at the end of this week, so they'll be back in their home spaces. What we asked of North Branch, and they've been so accommodating and so wonderful with what they're doing, is please don't hold on to the whole bank until you're done. As soon as you finish a room, let us back in, because this is really rough for teachers, rough for kids to just not know where their home is. So we wanted to make sure that we address that. It is a fact, but it's temporary, thank goodness. And In our conversations with North Branch today, we were talking about demobilization, which we cannot wait for that to happen either. That was not too
So
far
you'll
off in
still
the
have 3
distance.
rooms that are out of commission.
There'll be 3 rooms that are out of commission through the holiday break. 2 of those 3 rooms will be back just after vacation.
Yep.
And then the 3rd room will be the music room. And I've had a long conversation with Mrs. Late. She's actually doing quite nicely with the stoves in the kitchen to have the band in the fax room right now. So, and she'll be back mid-January-ish. Everything has been an ish this year of we're given sort of kind of deadlines and
And then we have a period of, 4 or 5 months until the summer break.
So then we have some work in the boiler room from January 15th to about February 15th, where the old boilers come out, the chimney comes out, and the new equipment will be in there too, but things will be starting to be tied in there. And then
the
from
oil tank will
February,
be capped.
oil tank will be capped. We don't believe we can take the oil tank out now that the ground is more frozen, but that will be capped. That's all being run through North Branch hires out a company that only deals with used oil, because when you're talking about used oil, you're talking about environment and things like that. So the going thought right now is that cap it and then take out the tank in the spring. But that work will be, boiler room work will be kind of worked on January 15th through February 15th. And I think it's around February 15th that they'll completely leave and then come back around June 28th.
So are you anticipating solar to be live in February?
No.
That's what I was just going to say, but we're not going to be completely done because the solar panels and the connection to the solar panels will be taking place.
So North Branch will be leaving, and then solar's different company coming in to do the solar. So we should get the panels up midwinter, late winter, and then the battery storage is where more of the production problems are. So that will be later spring.
Got it. So are you forecasting increased electricity from February through June because we're not going to be using oil, you got to power it somehow.
Yeah, so we definitely will have increased electricity, but we will not have touched, we have 45,000 in the budget for oil. In a typical year right now with oil prices, that would have been too low, but we haven't touched that at all. So they filled up the oil tank in June with last year's money, and because the rates were also very low at that time as well, so we haven't touch that 45,000. So we can add that on to our electric budget, which was about like 65,000, I think. So we should be decent at that point.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions based on anything else that I didn't talk about that was in my report that I wrote 2 weeks ago before a lot of things have happened? So there's been a lot going on and we're really excited to wrap up this construction project and continue on with the learning that is happening every day.
Thank you.
Thank you for keeping it all going.
Boy, some days it's a challenge, other days it's easy breezy.
All right, and I will invite Mr. Hess to come up to do his principal presentation.
Hey everybody, thanks for having me. I did not write a report because I figured you don't want to read another one this time of year. So I wanted to just quickly give an update on 2 of the things that we're really focusing on at the high school in regards to our building goals for the year. And the 2 that I'm going to talk about today are the climate and culture piece and the instructional practice piece. So first and foremost, climate and culture. There are a ton of things going on that we think we're going to start to really yield some results for the culture of the students in the building and the staff in the building. And the first thing is I last Wednesday had my first full school assembly at Campbell High School. So I used to do every Monday morning at the regional, we would do Spartan Spotlight, where I would have the entire student body and staff, and we would celebrate and highlight students, teachers. We would talk about what was going on that week, any updates, and that sort of thing. And that was just a really nice way for us to start a week, for me to have FaceTime with the entire student body. I haven't had an opportunity like that yet at Campbell. And
High praise for your first one.
And it's thank you. And it's it's
Did you
been
hear about it too?
it's been weird because
Sorry, I missed that. Sorry, I got you.
I don't get a ton of FaceTime with kids. I'm in classrooms a lot. I'm in the hallways a lot. There's a lot of kids that say hi, Mr. Hess, but I don't know who they are because I don't have a lot of that interaction. So we've, had the newness of the school year is worn off, so we're seeing some kids wander in the halls, we're at, that sort of thing. So, I heard from the staff and I said, this is something we want to do once a month. So we had our first one, and I talked to the kids about gratitude. I talked to them about the things we get to do that not everyone gets to do. But the first probably 12 minutes were celebrating what has happened the first 13 weeks of school. So I celebrated clubs, I celebrated honor societies, I celebrated athletics, I celebrated just the kindness that I see on a daily basis. And I have heard good things. It's always, you never know how that's going to go over. It's the first time we've done something like that this year. But it's nice, and like Mr. O'Sullivan had said, he likes the alliteration. I'm trying to think of what to call these. Cougar Connections, Hess's Huddle. Like we're throwing things around, but I do like the alliteration. So we're gonna open it up.
You need a triple alliteration.
Yeah. But it's nice because there's always celebrations, but there's always a consistent message for everyone to hear. And I always do it in story form. So I talked about a former student of mine that I had in New York years ago, who was just, gratitude and gracious wrapped in an 18-year-old kid. And then I talked about, what it means to be a student at Campbell High School and the things we should do and the things we shouldn't and the rules and that sort of thing. And so it's a really nice way to sit the whole school down and talk about expectations without having to yell at kids. And it was really nice. And so I'm glad I got good feedback. I'm excited to do it again in January and really just kind of get to celebrate. So that's one thing.
I missed the beginning. When do you hold this to get all the students all there?
Wednesday during our 22-minute advisory.
So all hands on deck.
All hands on deck. I have they go to advisory. Their advisor walks them down. They sit with their advisor in the auditorium.
Awesome. Another team building thing with their advisory. I like that.
It's just it's informal. I don't hold a microphone. I walk around a lot while I talk. I'll invite you to the next one. I'm more than happy to show you guys kind of what it looks like and that sort of thing. And then the second one is our climate and culture work with the Bills. So I've been on record. I told the Bills this. I told Dr. Jetty this. I was super reluctant when I was hired and heard, we're going to bring in some outside people to work on climate and culture. I was like, it has been fantastic. We have 15 amazing students. We have 5 amazing staff members that we meet once a month as a group, and then every 2 weeks we check in with like 2 to 3 kids as well, and they're going to start doing some work. But we had our second session today with the kids, and we have some amazing leaders in that building. And the work that we're going to continue to do for the next 2 years is super encouraging when we talk about including everyone, talking about equity, talking about really creating a culture in the building. And we did this little activity today where they put different colored dots on our heads, and we couldn't talk. We had to organize ourselves in groups, really kind of super quick. And then they said, we did it, reorganize. And we had a sophomore girl who really took over, and we're trying to still do groups, and she brought us all. And I said, as a building principal, just the symbolism of the fact that we were still putting ourselves in groups, diverse groups, but groups. And a sophomore took over without using her words and made us one big diverse group. I said the symbolism of that as the building principal was wonderful. So I have high hopes for this group. I have high hopes for this work with the Bills. It's really been fantastic. And I think that we're going to see that trickle really reach. And again, there's going to be setbacks. There's going to be issues that we come across. But I think overall we're doing some really nice things around climate and culture at Campbell High School. So that was my first, building goal update. And then the second one is around really just kind of our instructional practices overall. I talk a lot about student engagement at the high school. And I get one faculty meeting a month, and then the other meeting a month that they have is a department meeting. Once a month, not enough time for me to get face-to-face when we're talking about changing the way that we think about education. I talk a lot about hands-on. You're not going to hear me use the phrase project-based learning because I think that there's a negative connotation with that. I talk a lot about inquiry, real-life experiences, and student engagement. And so it's just about what are you currently teaching, how can students have some voice and choice in how they learn it, and where's the real world application. And so I have cleared it with the staff, we talked about it, and I'm gonna take that second meeting a month for a full school staff meeting again. And that second meeting a month is gonna focus specifically on teachers trying things in their classroom around those instructional practices. Shannon Zepan is doing some amazing student-centered work in her health classes right now. Our social studies department is diving deep into a lot of this kind of stuff. There's pockets around the building, and I'm going to start having the teachers collaborate and share that with each other. Because it's one thing for me to drone on, it's another thing to bring Mary in and talk about competencies and that sort of thing. But when teachers are learning from each other and sharing, I'm really excited about the work that we're going to be doing this year and then into Live to Learn this summer and kind of continuing. So, one of the things that I will encourage, I'll encourage you guys, I encourage, parents and everything, when they hear us talk about inquiry and diving deep into something, reach out to me and ask questions. We're not changing education by any means. We're still learning Algebra 1. We're still doing these skills and these competencies. We're just going to try to do it in a more student-centered way where they take some ownership of their learning in a respectful, responsible way, because we're teaching them how to be ready for that next level. But adding that real world application and getting them engaged in what they're learning is far better than, History 101. Let's read for 90 minutes and then you'll take an exam and we'll never talk about it again. So really kind of flipping and talking about that is a big goal. So, I told the staff the other day, I feel like I'm doing like 1,000 things at once, none of them super well right now, but they're all interconnected with each other. So, when I focus on climate and culture, it really encompasses so many things. It's hard work, it's fun, it keeps me busy, and so I'm trying to cram as much as I can now, because in about a week and a half, we're going to welcome our second kiddo into the Hess household. So things are going to get a little bit busier for us on the home front. So. But I can't say enough about the team I have at Campbell High School. I really can't. So those are 2 quick updates. I'll answer any questions about the work we're doing.
It sounds like some very exciting changes.
Yeah, and it's in the little things. I try to be very particular about the language I use around things, because I think that's important in kind of how we approach different things. When you think about project-based learning, for those of you in education, Buck Institute, 20 years ago, they had, hey, it needs to be these 8 things or it's not quality work. And I just think if kids are looking deeply into a topic and they can see a real-world application for it and they have some voice and choice in how they learn it, every research shows that that's where deep learning happens. And so that's just really what I'm encouraging with the staff. And we're trying it. It's not a mandate from the principal. It's not your classroom needs to change immediately. It's let's try some things. I'm going to give you tools. We're going to talk about it. We're going to collaborate and kind of go from there. So it's been really good since September.
Awesome.
Thanks. Anything else?
And just before Jake leaves, so I also moved from my report up under the high school report because he's here, the NIASC letter that came back.
I saw that.
Okay, yeah.
See, there's, we should focus on the positive first. So there's a whole host of things that the commission was pleased to see in that follow-up report that was submitted, and I think I shared it with the board. I think you had the report. And then there are basically 3 things that are overarching for the school to work on this year, and the 5-year report is actually due in October of '23. So, so this October.
So excited to write that,
by
the way.
But the 3 things are, the team is aware, the leadership team and the curriculum facilitators know that, because these aren't new things. These are leftover items from the decennial report. So, but just so the board's aware that letter did come back from the NIASC.
And it's, I'll comment on one of those, ensure clear alignment, between the written and taught curriculum. I'm very open with my staff, and so I was talking to them the other day about, what does your unit plan look like? Not your UBD that you have, like what does your real unit plan look like? And what does it then translate to in the classroom? So I've had teachers, I'm just curious, there's no ulterior motive. They just share with me their unit plan and say, this is what I actually use when I teach the lesson. And so then when I go in for my observations, when I go in for my evaluations, I'm like, that's what it looked like in your mind, and now here's what it looks like in practice. And it's so interesting to see just the different ways, because I'm a nerd, the different ways people's minds work when they map out what they want to do, what it then translates, and then the questions that they ask afterward. And that's, I did, 12 mini observations last week. And I'll probably do between now and Christmas break 15 to 20 more, plus first rounds of evals. So I told Mike Perez I'm going to take a majority of them this year because I'm new and I want to see what's happening. So don't call my office. I probably won't answer. Send me an email because I'm in classrooms and it's great to see what's going on and then having instructional conversations with our faculty. It's been really great.
I'm interested in increased opportunities for cross-disciplinary collaboration across the curriculum.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that this is where that is going to easily come in when we do our second meeting a month and teachers start hearing twice a month what's happening in each other's classroom.
That's how it used to be set up, social studies and
Correct.
English. They would learn about a time period and they read
it's
literature, but they're separate now.
Humanities is great. Social studies and English is so easy. What I'm
Right.
excited for is the English and the PE. What I'm excited for is the science and social studies collaboration. And it's, hey, this is what I'm doing in my classroom. This is what I tried. Like, wait a minute. I've done a similar thing. Let's see where we can collaborate.
It's so important.
Forced collaboration and forced co-teaching fail so often. So I love just this organic, let's start with conversations and see where it goes. That's where the best collaboration across content happen.
It doesn't have to be perfect at first.
Correct.
Every year it'll get better
Yes.
and more.
If you know it's going to be muddy at first, you can reflect and pivot along the way. That's what I've always said.
Graphing in science, graphing in math, all that stuff. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Good night. Thanks so much,
You too.
everybody.
Thanks.
Community input. Emma, do you have any community input, updates? Okay. I told. Okay, I told Emma next time she comes, she's gonna call me and we'll put her seat up here with her partner in crime.
Yeah, and
Emma, we do have committee updates on the agenda. Do you want to talk about your next newsletter?
Yeah, Ginger right now.
Sure.
Would that be okay,
Yeah.
everybody?
I'm not sure if all of you have seen the wellness newsletter I did. I sent out, I think, last month. That was more focused on nutrition. This coming one, I'm focusing on social and emotional wellness. So I'm interviewing kind of some people who help with that in the district, so people are aware of who's available for resources. We also met yesterday. We're gonna send out like a self-care challenge for January and healthy habits challenge for February in the newsletter. And we're also planning, I think, an event, hopefully in the spring. I think of what else we talked about yesterday. That's mainly what I have for now. My next newsletter will come out
That's a
next
good
month.
summary.
It is a good summary.
Yeah.
Emma, can I ask you what your plans are for next year? I know you're the daughter of an educator, a Salem educator.
Yeah, I'm going to college. I think I want to go for business.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah.
Great. I'm glad you're planning ahead. I was hoping for another teacher, but.
Nothing wrong with business.
I know.
I agree. Hold on.
I have such
For
respect.
taking on the wellness
Thank you.
committee for your senior project. We appreciate
you.
that very much.
That's great.
Thanks, Emma.
And I'm going to close community comment. Correspondence.
Oh, my turn. Okay, we've got a couple of weeks worth of correspondence. I will go through it as quickly as I can. And then I will send a copy to who? I used to send it to Michelle.
I'll get you the email address of the minute taker.
Whoever I'm supposed to send it to, let me know, because she would just insert it into the minutes.
Yep.
November 16th, 2022, Heather Portillo, a community member, sent an email with concern about the direction of the school district and the number of complaints that she has heard about Dr. Jetty. On November 17th, Doug Totten, our business administrator, circulated the school board and budget committee changes spreadsheet. On November 18th, Olivia Ash, a student, sent an email to the board outlining the great experience she had at when the student council went to Waterville Valley. She had a reflection on what she learned, and there were responses from Dr. Jetty, Mr. Benoit, and Mr. Gingras. On November 18th, Dr. Jetty emailed the school board inquiring about the availability for a special school board meeting to review final numbers for the budget. Responses from myself, Tara Hirschberger, Liz McDonald, and Tina Harrison. On November 19th, Gail Beringer, I hope I said that right, community member, sent questions about special education line items. There have been multiple responses back and forth between her and Dr. Jetty to answer her questions. On November 22nd, how does Barb say her last name? Walowski, thank you. Circulated the draft agenda for the November 30th, 2022 special meeting. On November 22nd, Elizabeth McDonald, Chair, sent an email confirming that the meeting would be scheduled for November 30th at 5 o'clock. On November 23rd, Mr. Totten sent an email to the school board circulating slides outlining the major drivers for the increases in the FY24 budget, namely the LEA contract, the LSSA contract, transportation contract, special education transportation contract, the municipal lease, the out-of-district tuition, health and dental, and energy increases. On November 23rd, Mr. Totten sent us another email and circulating a spreadsheet outlining the health insurance increases in more detail. On November 27th, Jocelyn Rejo, community member, sent an email with concern about the cut of the position to the music and arts department. On November 28th, Mr. Totten sent us circulated a spreadsheet comparing school rankings for building aid. Notably, Litchfield was listed as number 5 out of 17, but if you do not include the free and reduced lunch numbers, Litchfield is number 2. On November 30th, Mr. Totten circulated an updated spreadsheet reflecting verbal agreement with Eastern to extend the lock-in for propane for FY24 at $2.25, and then additional updates to health insurance. On December 1st, 2022, Michelle Flynn, our former school board assistant, sent an email thanking us for the E3 recognition award she received and wishing us well. On December 2nd, I'm going to get an Ann. How do I say her last name?
Anna Marati.
Anna Marati circulated the manifest for us. On December 2nd, Mr. Totten circulated background information regarding the various financing programs that were used that may have resulted in a discrepancy between a paper and PDF copies, and he circulated e-finance reports to show what the actual numbers were. On December 2nd, Mr. Totten circulated a folder with updated information for changes to the budget. On December 3rd, Heidi Ames sent an email to the school board and superintendent inquiring about changing the December 7th board meeting due to quorum issues. Responses were received from Dr. Jetty, Mr. Cutter, Ms. Harrison. The meeting was changed to December 14th, which is where we are right now, and combined our December 7th and December 21st meeting. On December 5th, Mr. Totten sent an email regarding the signing and timing of the manifests and obtaining necessary signatures in time. On December 5th, Dr. Jetty sent an email to the school board circulating the field report from David Ely regarding the LMS project. On December 7th, Dr. Jetty sent an email to the school board with the press release regarding the land purchase that would be made public at 4 o'clock that day. On December 8th, Heidi Ames emailed the school board with concern regarding public knowledge of specific details in the purchase and sale agreement that were not included in the press release and were part of a non-public session. There were responses from Ms. Harrison, Mr. Cutter, and Mr. Totten. On December 12th, Mr. Cutter emailed the school board and Dr. Jetty with a request to circulate the updated agenda, and there was a response from Dr. Jetty. On December 12th, Mr. Totten circulated a spreadsheet with the budget committee changes, with the tab that has the budget committee changes to the budget. On December 13th, Lauren Crowley, food service director, emailed regarding the wellness meeting being held, that was held yesterday at 3:30. On December 14th, Kate Stevens, community member, emailed with questions regarding long-term plans for the potential land purchase if a new building continues to fail and not pass the voters, and requested consider use for conservation or for town facilities. On December 14th, there was an email circulated by Ms. Hirschberger circulating the updated special audit RFP. On December 14th, Dr. Jetty circulated the agenda. On December 14th, Mr. Totten circulated his updated BA report. And I believe that brings us up to 5 o'clock start.
Thank you for that.
Take a drink.
Okay. That was a lot.
Done.
Let's see, school board meeting. That really was a lot. Thank you.
Nope, no
That's
problem.
a full-time job there. I am going back to, general business superintendent's report.
Yep, so I shared with the board the enrollment report. You can see that it's kind of like other months. We're in a kind of a holding pattern, static. And I also shared with you the picture that we took when we awarded Michelle the E3 award. So if
Yeah,
you
that's a
remember,
nice
she's the one who
picture.
founded that award.
Yeah.
And created the pin and the whole 9 yards. And I'm like, oh my goodness, we need to recognize her.
When did that happen?
Today?
That was in the SAU office.
Before Thanksgiving, I think,
Yeah,
right?
it was. I
can look and tell you when the email was because I just read it.
Yeah.
I think it was December 1st was the email, so it would have been November 30th.
Just for future reference, I would have liked to have been there, having worked with her for
Yeah, absolutely. And
almost
in
7
fact,
years.
I should have had it at the last meeting, but it
Yeah.
was one of those, it got away from me, and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my goodness.
Right, and you
So,
had to get it before she left.
so we needed to make sure that we recognized her on the way out.
All right. Public minutes, November 16th, 2022, and November 30th, 2022.
So one quick thing for the board.
Oh.
So the 16th were minutes that, those were Michelle's last minutes.
Okay.
And the 30th are the first minutes of the new minute taker. And, open to feedback on format. They're very different styles, but that's what happens when you have somebody new doing it. So if there are things you don't like about that, please let me know, and we'll pass that along and work on it.
I did just have a comment about the November 30th minutes, in relation to the motion that Mr. Cutter made to add $94,878 to the budget in reference to the music, program. There were rationale for adding it to the budget, but there were two of us that voted against it. So I think it's important to put the reasons why we voted against it in there, which were that the budget was brought forward by administration, included one music teacher at each school and not a total of 4. The reasons also given previously was the declining enrollment and based on inquiries to cohort or same-size schools, 3 music teachers was the right size for our district. So I would just like that noted.
And I seconded that motion, by the way. I think it said that someone else had.
Can you, which page is that on?
This is page
4.
Thought I was gonna
Do
find
a
it.
search for 94,878.
Page 4.
Got it.
Yeah, Tina seconded that.
Also, I don't recall that motion passing 500.
What motion?
It's a 3-2, I thought.
It's 320.
320.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the next page, which is another motion. My apology.
So this.
Yeah, that one's, I was looking
second
at
yeah,
the
yeah.
500.
Tina?
Yep.
Yes. The second was Tina.
Thank you for mentioning that to her, Joel.
Would we still vote to approve these with changes made?
As amended.
As amended,
amended.
yes. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the November 16th, 2022 minutes and the November
Can you
30th.
separate them, please? I wasn't here for the 16th.
Sure. I will make a motion to approve the November 16th, 2022 minutes.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain.
Aye.
And I will make a motion to approve the November 30th, 2022 meeting minutes as amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. 500.
I do like the format of the new minutes. I
Yeah, I
think
do
it's
too.
clear, concise.
It's very similar to the town format.
It
It
does
is
look very similar.
Yeah, although a different person.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
who we're using, but.
Although
It's that
same
person's
last-
mother.
Oh, okay. All right.
Oh,
Got it.
Mr. Sullivan's?
It's mom.
Yeah, nice. There you go.
It's all in the family.
Yeah. Well, then they can pick up for each other.
Right.
Business and operations, financial and operations update.
All right. So I didn't notice until I got here tonight that my link wasn't updated to include the November financials. As we kind of went from one school board meeting 2 to 1, typically we do the financials at the second, but I just put it in this one. I just sent it to you guys, the email at the beginning of this meeting, but there's a lot of financials in there, so I don't really expect people to kind of look through the hundreds of pages and necessarily have questions of November right now. If you do, that's great. If not, we can definitely look at it at the next school board meeting as well. So in there, though, at the start was the October invoice for North Branch, as well as where we were at that point with change orders for the LMS project. So I don't know if there's any questions on that.
That one did come through
That one was
previously.
already there
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
So that was all ready for the first
I will
meeting.
forward the new link to the budget committee.
Yep.
Thank you. I didn't forward the previous one. I wasn't gonna do it until after we met, so.
So we have since had our November bill come in, and that will be, I'll link that on the
Yeah.
next one. That was $413,240.
So what's the remaining balance on the B of A?
So,
It's mostly
We started at 4.95, right?
start at 4.95. We did earn some interest, but pretty much 4.95. And then, so we have through October, through this 506 one, we had 1.672 million remaining in there.
Okay. I had asked a question, and I put comments onto the agenda, but I put comments on the December 7th agenda. And I don't know if those got saw or lost or whatever, but one of the questions was.
I didn't see them.
You didn't see them?
Yeah,
I
I
definitely
didn't
added them.
either.
I don't know. One of the questions was, where do we stand with addressing the deficit projected for this current year in the budget?
What we'd like to do is have a conversation with the board tonight, because it's projections. And so we'd like to do that in non-public, because it also involves just some matters that we want to make sure that we can outline exactly where we think we stand. So we'll be giving the board an update this evening.
That's interesting. I'm not sure I agree that that's a non-public warranted discussion to have.
I would make the case with personnel decisions that it may be something that we want to do in non-public.
Okay. Well, I mean, I know we were throwing out the number of a deficit balance. This was maybe a month or two ago. Are we still projecting it's going to be somewhere around the 280 mark? Because I believe that was the number that was thrown around, if I'm not mistaken.
280.
280,000 deficit for fiscal year 23.
That is not where we are tonight.
Is it lower or higher?
We're in the negative, so it's higher.
Yeah. So it's above 280,000.
We believe we will end up being positive, on the positive side.
So no deficit.
We believe we have a pathway to close the gap.
A pathway to close the gap, yes. But as far as the projects go, that capital projects would still be in a deficit, and they would just be covered by general fund.
By the end of the year.
At the end of the year. To land overall positive, we believe.
Got it. So you found offsetting credits for the deficit, and you'd like to have a conversation about that. Fine. What's that deficit number that we're projecting right now?
Little bit, so that, like, worst case scenario, it's tough because now that North Branch is gonna be doing work in the summer. They told me at the meeting today that they can get me a month-by-month kind of projection between now and the summer. Before, it was a little bit harder for them, but now that they've got the ERVs in place, they're seeing what kind of work went into that, they feel more comfortable that they can give me a month-by-month. And then the other tricky thing with that too is that they hold retainage. So say, they hire a painting company. The painting company does their work, we pay for the painting company in a bill, but we don't pay the full price for it. Because we also want to be satisfied at the end of the day that they did the work how we wanted it to be done. So we don't pay that retainage until 50% of the work is completed overall, and then 100%. So now that we're going to be kind of bridging two fiscal years, it becomes a little bit more complicated. But they're working on that retainage as well to figure out how much we're going to owe this year, fiscal year, and then how much we're going to owe next year. So
It looks like a $2 million balance for North Branch, at least, according to the latest bill. Overall, I don't know what the breakdown is this year versus next year. Is that correct?
So we also have some elementary expenses. So as of now, we had, for this fiscal year, we had, why is it not adding up? sum was 0. It does not make any sense.
I think, how many sheets are there that you intend to walk everybody through?
Oh, there are about 10, 11.
It's a pretty elaborate response that I really think we're piecemealing, that you have to kind of see the whole picture, and it does include, and who knows, the board may say, present that to us in public in January. But I'm not ready to do that yet. I think we need to lay this out and see exactly what's there and then get your feedback on it. So if you would allow us to hold off until then, I think it'll all come together and you'll see how all these pieces fit.
I get that. I guess I'm just going back to what I thought was a simple question. I'm not getting a direct answer, which I'm not sure I'm comfortable with. I mean, we've said publicly time and again at these meetings that we're running a deficit for fiscal year 23. I'm just asking what that number is.
In the project fund.
In the project fund,
Yep.
we knew that there was a deficit for fiscal year 23 that was presented at the public hearing as also having a balance.
Right.
We've increased that balance because of changes that rolled over from last year to this year. I thought it was somewhere in the $280,000 range, negative for this year that we need to solve for.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you're saying that hasn't changed. The difference is there may be some offset or credit somewhere else
Yeah.
that
That's
they're
what
not
that's
ready
what
to.
that's what I wasn't
Yeah,
hearing.
that is correct. And then when we put it all together and work through all the various scenarios that Doug and Holly have done a boatload of work to get this. And then I think you'll see the overall picture. So, yep, this part's in the deficit, we know that, we've acknowledged that. Here's how we intend to cover that, which is what the board had asked us to do. And that does get into some personnel stuff that I think we need to be really clear about. And then,
Yeah, I get the offsetting credits, if that's involving personnel and moving of funds. I appreciate that part of it.
yeah.
Got
I think we're talking past each other. So the
The deficit, I'm gonna.
I think it's the use of the word deficit, because you're saying 280, which was the construction
Yes.
deficit, and they're saying the overall deficit, the year-end deficit.
Correct.
And so I think.
We shouldn't have a year-end deficit. The only deficit that we should have is from the project.
correct.
Correct.
That will be the case.
That's what we agree on.
Bingo.
Excellent.
And again,
On the
we have to show you how we're getting there, right?
Okay.
So how are you covering a pre-announced deficit? And remember, we had two strategies. We're gonna manage that. We're gonna mitigate that, right? By actions that we take to not grow it. But then we're also gonna identify other ways to offset it. And so that's the piece that I'd like an opportunity to walk everybody through.
Are these change orders having any impact on the deficit?
Yes, they would have impact on the deficit.
So what other change orders are we anticipating?
So we are anticipating fire stop change order. So when they come in and they're working and they do their cutouts for all the new HVAC, they put into the bid what they were gonna fire stop. Then they start opening up the ceilings and they realize that we were out of code. Now they can't leave until that we're in code.
Sure.
So that's gonna be a decent amount that they're hopefully to get me the total price on that by the end of this week. It needs to be done.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely, yeah.
in a way, it's being done too. And I said, are you truly going to know your total price because you haven't gone into the kitchen yet? And they said, well, we've opened enough of the ceiling tiles in the kitchen to know what it's going to be. So that should be kind
fire
of.
stop? Please, God, tell me yes.
So I know they're going to have to add to there as well.
That is so scary.
You know, it's one of those things,
It's so
we spend a
scary.
lot of time focusing on that gap all the way around the perimeter.
Yep.
And what we didn't do, again, hindsight 2020, is I wonder if there's other gaps
Yeah.
that exist.
You would
right?
assume
So
there would be a fire stop in a kitchen,
you would assume that
but it's the
that
word
wasn't a
assume.
fire stop gap, that was an air leak gap, and we were focused on sealing that up and getting
Right.
better energy efficiency. But the assumption was that the fire stops were in place, and they weren't. So it's,
How does the change order impact the not to exceed?
So change orders are above and beyond what they bid it on. So it's not doing what they would typically do, it's extra, it's different. So it's always going to be on top of that
So
contract.
currently, for public awareness, what I'm looking at is a spreadsheet of change orders. There's 4 change orders. One is a credit of $10,384. One is a change order of $108,856. One is a change order of $16,712, and then there's a potential approved change order of $40,500. So confirmed total of $155,691.66 minus a reimbursement of $24,595. Confirmed total of change orders as of this moment, $131,100.
Yeah, so and as you read, and as you kind of read the tabs, it is a little bit confusing because
Yep.
there's a change order, like 001 goes with a single change order.
Yep.
But then what they do in a confirmed change order, they group sometimes together several single ones.
Number two.
Yeah, like
Number
number
two,
two.
you'll just see a grouping of them, and that is, confirmed at that point, and then we pay for it. So if you go to the potential change orders tab, you'll see that even though we haven't paid for several of these, we've agreed that we are on the hook for several of these.
And the firewall's not in this yet.
And the firewall is not in there, and there's two other ones that they're not major change orders, I don't believe, but my notes are back in the office, so I don't know what those are as of now. So they're working on getting the numbers together for that. It's hard for me to add numbers in here until they give me the numbers, but they talked over two more that they believe will be, I believe, the last two other than the fire stop for this till they start working on the kitchen.
And anything that's North Branch contingency, that is within the total cost, and that was like a bucket that they had set aside that won't cost us any extra, is that correct?
That is correct. So, and then at the end of the day, we get back the leftover of that bucket from the North Branch contingency. So if they don't use it up, it does come back to the district, but.
Is that 7%, or is it a certain percent?
So the 7% I put in there, when I asked around a little bit, I said, what is typical for a school to put in for a contingency on our part? Because there's no way to predict, especially in a building of that age, how everything's gonna go and what's above the roof line and what's below grade and things like that. So I said, what would a school typically, use as a contingency? And I've got numbers, 5, 7, 9 type of thing. So I put 7% in just to kind of show, are we
Right
gonna
now,
end up
we're at about
close to
2%.
where that 7% where would have been good to budget, or are we gonna be a little bit below or a little bit
Yeah.
higher type of thing? So that's just kind of like for us to ballpark that against.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm just balancing what I'm hearing about change orders and potential, maybe sizable change orders for firewall. Also balancing that with our deficit conversation a moment ago, and it sounds like the deficit's going to increase.
The deficit in that fund, specifically tied to the change orders at LMS, it is going to increase. You're absolutely right.
Yep.
We still feel confident that with
Correct.
realigning things, we'll be able to balance it out by the end of the year.
Yes.
Okay.
That's it.
And what we don't know is, going back to your question about guaranteed maximum, we don't know if there's any return against that number, right? Because that would then offset some of that.
Right, because there's a contingency in there.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so, so for example, some of the fire stop stuff, which is recorded as a change order, may end up being contingency.
Pulled from that.
Yeah, exactly. But the
There's
guaranteed-
100 and, what, 70
Sure.
in that contingency? Something like that.
Something like,
Yeah, that's fine. Okay.
All right, so the next thing kind of on the agenda was the financial reports.
Yes.
Again, they just came out to the board. I apologize for that. You'll notice at the bottom, though, I did add a cash balance. One of the things that the auditors picked up on that will be a negative would be the use of cash and how close the school district came to not having enough cash at the end of the year. So one thing we all need to know is how much cash do we have in the bank at, well, any moment, but especially every month type of thing. So during these months, it's never typically a concern over cash, because, we're getting plenty of money coming in from the town, and we pay off, kind of a normal amount every month towards salaries and benefits and things like that. It's really the June, which we would want to look at it a little bit more, but we also just want to kind of see where it is for the year. So that's been added there too. And again, as we move on for this year, if you think something else needs to be on here, let me know. If something seems overly confusing, let me know, but we'll kind of adjust it there. And I know there's lots of information, so I don't expect any questions now, but can I have questions, or we can just kind of plan on the first meeting in January as well?
Let's put this back on the January meeting, given the
Yeah.
miscommunication about which agenda we were on. Let's make sure that we have it there, and we'll.
Yeah, I want time to go through all these links as
Absolutely.
well.
You should.
Can I just address why we didn't have a meeting? I think some people want to know why we're only having one meeting and why everything, it's because I had a death in the family and Mrs. Ames was traveling, and it was just a lot for 3 people to go through, and we decided to condense in this one meeting because compared to our other meetings, this isn't much longer.
So we're in for a long meeting tonight, folks.
Yes.
Buckle up.
Excellent. Are you all set, Doug? Do you have anything else?
Well, I wanted to go over a little bit of update from the Budget Committee. I know I sent
okay.
out the document as well. We've had very productive meetings with the budget. They've asked some really good questions. They've looked to kind of make sure that we're moving forward with a fair budget for everybody in the town, which I respect. They're also knowing that sometimes there's just simple mistakes that are good to clean up. We didn't know that the halftime PE teacher wasn't actually part of the budget. They voted to kind of put that back in because that was kind of the expectation going forward. Some other cuts that we made was when the admin assistant from school board, SAU, left, we talked about, not filling that position, but the Budget Committee then also dropped the salaries from next year's budget and kept stipends in it, which was what we were hoping they would do. So it's just been a lot of good conversation with the Budget Committee. I was able to reach out and touch base with somebody about the oil prices. They said, yep, you can sign a contract through another year. At that time, the price was $3.39 in that conversation, because you try to get as much information as you can. They said, hey, by the way, it's dropped 30 cents in the last 4 days, so I don't know if you want to do it now. And personally, I wouldn't do it at that point anyways, because if I'm gonna lock in the district for another year totally out, I wouldn't want to do that without talking with the board. So the Budget Committee, though, I could see why they made the recommendation. They said, okay, we're not going to use, I think it was like $4.15 as our guide. We're going to use $3.39 as our guide. So don't need an answer today either, but I don't know if we want to kind of have some thought that says, hey, Doug, if you call back and it's $3.40 or less, lock us in. Or if we want to wait a little bit, we're in a tricky spot because they talk about possibly inflation going down and possibly things going down, but that
We're out of hurricane season.
So we got a lot of possibles, but we also talk about.
That is true.
Yeah. So with the oil, we locked in the electric, we locked in the propane. The oil would be the last thing to lock in. And again, for fiscal year '24, it's only oil for the elementary school.
What's the consultant saying?
So we,
It seems to me like prices keep going down for oil.
So the predictions we were getting,
So high and
I mean,
now-
first of all,
At least gas.
do you remember when we said we want to get out of the volatile market? It's because making predictions in this market are a challenge.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's so many things that are kind of unprecedented about where we stand. So
Might be just wait, just
we gave you what the consultant was advising, and my historical knowledge is usually after the election, the gas prices go back up. This is the opposite. I'm like, this is weird. This isn't what normally happens. They drive down prior to the election, they spike afterwards. I don't know what's going on. And what's the danger? You lock in, you have a known amount. The danger is you're paying more than you should have been.
When's our last chance to lock in?
well, we can lock in whenever we want. It just depends on when we call what the rate is.
Yeah.
So, and if we call and the rate's not good, then we can, I don't know if I can ask the guy, hey, when it gets under this, can you give me a call? Or if I just have to kind of keep calling back after that.
We just had a friend drive up from Texas with his college son, and the gas started really cheap in Texas. And as he came up this way, he took pictures of the pump all the way. It's in the $2 range in Texas.
Really?
Kept getting higher, 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 higher. Ding, ding, ding.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, they said that, right? They said it was by the New Year's, it would be under $2,
yeah.
or under $3, into the twos. I don't know. It's the 14th. I'm not seeing it, but
So everyone's kind of thinking wait for now a little bit.
Yeah.
That's just
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
gut reaction
I would
as
like-
well, so.
yeah.
All right, so one more thing I have is somewhat quick. We had a check come in that was unanticipated revenue. We had signed a deal about a year ago to be kind of linked with a hydroelectric plant. And so what happened was, once people started putting solar on because I call them, like, why are we getting almost like this free money type of thing? So I figured out a little bit more what it was. So we're not going to say no to it, but so once people put solar arrays on their roof, their personal houses type of thing, at the beginning, they weren't selling back to Eversource. So then there became a bill that you could sell back to Eversource, so other companies wanted to get involved with that too. So hydroelectric, the only way that they can get involved with selling back to Eversource is to match their production with a municipality that has part of that production, and then the incentive for the municipality is that they give you back a half cent on every kilowatt hour. So for this quarter, we got a check for $1,456.07. So, it's below our threshold, but it's still obviously, whenever we get unanticipated revenue, we bring that up for the board,
Yeah, 5,000 is the threshold, right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Great.
Excellent.
Every little bit helps.
Yep.
All set?
All set.
Committee reports. Andrew, did you have any committees this week?
Nope.
Tina?
I did. We had this capital improvement planning committee for the presented to the select board on Monday night. I presented what we had so far, and that's available on video to see. There were a few questions about our priorities and our future plans, but the Board of Selectmen, Richard Lascelles, actually made a motion that they have a working meeting to go through the plan and review the priorities and the timing of all the projects.
Great.
Yeah.
Tara, did you have any meetings?
Emma gave a lovely summary of the wellness meeting. Thank you, Emma. We are also going to be we have a new policy, a new wellness policy that we're going to be bringing to the board in January. So that will be coming. I also wanted to add to Doug's report on the budget committee, the special ed account, it was cut $51,800 from our budget. However, there were two other motions at a higher amount, so this was the lowest of them all.
And the reasoning behind that?
Because it's been
generally
consistently
over-budgeted.
Yeah.
underspent.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the poor gator, it did not make the cut. It got cut again.
Gator again.
The rationale there was that could be a year-end fund.
Tried that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, and then there is an emergency management meeting tomorrow. So that's it.
Heidi, did you have any meetings?
I did not. Grading and reporting will meet next week, so I'll have a report for the January meeting. And Tina, facilities didn't meet today, right?
We did not.
Excellent.
My only comment is on website. I know that was one that Michelle was actively leading. I have not been plugged in. I know I agreed to take this one. I've not been plugged into anything. I have no idea where we are.
Who is leading that now, the
Yeah,
website?
so Chris Jamrog, who's the IT director, he was
nice.
co-chairing that with Michelle.
Great.
And I believe he sent an email. I thought he said he sent one out to everybody on the committee, so let me double check that. But he was seeking feedback. So we have a beta site. It's almost ready to launch. He's getting feedback from the committee on that beta site.
I would love to see it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then
Shoot him an email to remind him.
it will be, so once you say, yes, this is how we want it to look, you flip the switch, it pulls all the information over, and then it will go live.
Is it
So
user-friendly?
it's much more user-friendly. I think, from what I'm hearing from the committee, everybody's very pleased with the way it interacts. If you take a look at our website, you'll see that we've made some changes on it recently, just to sort of streamline the appearance and where information is located on there.
I'd like to find, like, it says agenda materials, and all that's under there are materials.
Yeah, so what Chris and I are working on, so here's,
Just want to find the
I'll
agenda.
just give you a glimpse, because this impacts the website, but if you go to other school districts that are Google districts, and you click on the word agendas, school board agendas, you actually get the Google files. you're not getting individual links that are being made, because all of that is like a copy and a link and a
Right.
redirect to something.
Okay.
You just get the Google directory. It looks just like you're in the drive, and it'll say agendas, and you click on the folder, and then they're all in there. So
Date.
our goal is to design that architecture for January, so that on the website, you're not going to have this long list of dates that are links. You're going to have a Google folder, and you'll just navigate in there. And we think most people at this point in time are familiar enough with the Google system and folders that they'll intuitively be able to find what's there.
I think
So-
limiting the menus and the sub-menus makes a lot of sense too, especially when you're, if it's optimized for mobile phone, which I think most people are accessing it now on their phones. But what I recall from being on that committee prior was that they did go with a vendor who was set up to optimize for mobile. So I'm hoping that that carries out too.
Well, Andrew will have to let us know.
Andrew will take a look.
Was there members of public invited to be a part of that committee?
Yes.
I know we had talked about that.
Yes.
Who
I-
from the public is a
I-
part of that?
Derek
Honestly.
Barca was a member from the
Oh,
community.
good.
Is that still the case? Do we know?
I believe that's accurate,
meeting,
yeah.
so-
I mean, it's
Yeah.
really been led by Chris and Michelle, and I've not been involved in it other than a quick glimpse. And then I get into things like, oh, that font, you could just change the color of
Yeah.
that, and they don't want to hear from me.
You send out black text emails. We don't want to hear from you.
Dark
Black
one.
and green.
Dark one.
Chris Jamrock, got it.
So Dr. Jetty, you said that once the new site is up and running, it'll literally just pull content over from the old site. My question is, the wellness committee drafted a new wellness page, because all we have on the current wellness page is the policy.
Mhm.
Should that be updated on the current site so that when it does carry over, it's just automatic? Or is that an update that should happen?
Don't
Later.
know.
I would wait
We
till
should ask
January
Chris
just in
what's
case,
easier
yeah.
for him.
Chris
Well, but
Jamrock.
you had also given us those forms for each committee with, kind of the mission, who's on it.
Right.
That kind of information to be.
And that's all on the current website.
That'll at least
So
be on
if you
there.
go to the, well, actually, I have to look to see where it is, but if you go to the district website, underneath,
I just went on the wellness page yesterday and it just still has the policy.
if you go under school board and go down to committees, so there's a new
Okay.
sub-menu
Oh,
there.
I see,
And then you
see.
get that grid, and that
Ah.
takes you to all the committees.
That's good.
And that goes to the information page that explains what the committee is, and then there's links to agendas and
see.
minutes off of that.
That's
So-
aesthetically pleasing to me.
Yeah,
It
so
really
we tried
is,
to
yeah.
really simplify it and list it out. So under wellness, when do you meet?
Emma, your fall wellness newsletter's there.
Yay!
Okay, thank
Let's
you.
text
I
that.
hadn't seen this. All right.
Yep, so it's there, and then
Yeah,
that will
I
pull
see.
over.
Oh,
Okay.
If we have to make any
There, why not?
adjustments, we can.
great.
Okay.
Alrighty, 7:00, new business.
All right, so let me go back to my agenda. Sorry, I'm on the
Draft
website.
warrant articles.
So draft warrant articles. So this is, so first of all, we are asked to present draft warrant articles to the Budget Committee tomorrow. The agenda's out. I think the town is presenting first, and then we're presenting afterwards on where we are. So the board has not seen this, but this is where we are with the draft warrant articles. So Article 1, first of all, let me talk about district offices. So this year, we need to elect a school moderator, we need to elect a school district clerk, and we need to elect one school board member for a 3-year term. And all of those are for 3-year terms. So those are the positions that'll be on the warrant this year. Under articles, Article 1 is the budget, and so there are a bunch of X's in there because we're waiting for the Budget Committee to get their number, and then we will be coming forward to the board with a recommendation for a default budget number. So for right now, this is sort of in a holding pattern, but those two numbers are forthcoming. Article number 2 is the land article, and I'm emailing back and forth with the attorney, so notice in the press release it said something similar to, there's a provision in the purchase and sales agreement that about the naming rights, and I want to make sure we get that right in the warrant article,
Yeah.
because it's tricky, because we're not proposing to actually build the school, but we're buying the land for when we build the school and the name that would be on it. And I think that has to be embedded in the warrant, but trying to get the wording correct is a challenge. So I'll try to reach out to Gordon tomorrow to see if he's had time to look at that. Article 3 is, again, this is just a number that we have in there at this point, but it's got $125,000 going into the Capital Improvement Expendable Trust Fund. We have been paying into that fund each year. That's the dollar amount that's in the CIP. And so the goal is for that to be not raised from taxation, but again, we need to have the projection to know whether we're going to be able to do that. And so that's just.
And if we don't, we take it off?
If we don't, it doesn't get funded.
Doesn't get
because-
funded. Okay.
And basically, you fund the warrant articles in order, so,
Okay.
We just have to decide on the sequence, because.
and you have to figure out a sequence of that.
Yeah.
We actually don't need this article because we can encumber it. I mean, based upon community feedback at the public hearing, we can encumber it and put it into an account, correct? And replenish our accounts that we already have.
We've always done it with a warrant article, though.
I agree, but the public feedback at the hearing was, instead of using it for other purposes, take it from your unassigned fund balance, encumber it, and put it into the fund if you have remaining funds left over.
I can see that
Right,
side
but
too.
I wouldn't, that was one piece of input from one individual, I would still.
We can check with Gordon about that.
I'm just curious
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
that isn't an option, right? The way I see this, I don't see that you're gonna have any money left over this year for Articles 3 and Articles 4 and anything using unassigned fund balance. I don't see how that's kind of even an option. Prove me wrong. Please.
Trying to,
Yeah.
working on it.
So I would agree there's not gonna be a lot of money.
Yep.
But I think there'll be some money. However, figuring out which accounts to put that into, and I'm intrigued by that idea because, the
Andrew loves
town
the
has
warrant
always
article.
voted on it, and.
I know.
I
This is
love the
shocking
idea of
coming
warrant
from you.
articles.
Yeah.
Right?
We know you do.
What I'm sharing and presenting to the board tonight is what the public shared with us as an option, and
Yeah.
just running with it for a minute.
Well, so we have on here 3 and 4, which are into the capital improvements and into the capital reserve, right? So trying to replenish those two funds. So we do have a dollar amount. We linked it to what the CIP said for the amount.
Right.
And I think, again, this is your first look at it, so you've got to have time to think about it. We're going to present it to the budget committee tomorrow, get their feedback on it. And I'll be curious to see how they respond to that sentiment.
The challenge is the timing, right? Because typically we're not encumbering things until closer to the end of the year,
Last meeting in June.
no?
We have that last meeting in June where that's exactly what we do. We do all those encumbrances. And so, we could walk in and say, this is what we would propose to do. But that means it's not fund balance for
A gator.
for the next year, for
Yeah.
Need to
taxes, right?
cater.
And so
Yeah.
it's,
And if it passes and we don't put that money in the account because we don't have it, then what?
Nothing happens.
That's exactly what, yeah, then there's no money to put in that account, so.
Okay.
But if there's partial money to go in, I mean, we might not have the whole thing, we could have 34,000 of it, then the 34,000 would go in.
So that's something you guys can explore with council to see if that's an option. You had mentioned maybe with Gordon.
Yeah, as far as, do we need a warrant article, or can we just encumber it into the, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, at this point, between Articles 3 and 4, the way they're written at the moment is $250,000 on top of everything else, right? I don't see how,
Right, and this is where sequence
Real
is
that is this
important, because right now, we have $125,000 already in the capital improvements expendable trust, but we have like 70,000 in the building maintenance capital reserve fund, so.
Okay.
About the order.
All right.
what I don't see, I'm sorry.
No,
You have
go
another
ahead.
article here, Article
Yeah, there's
5.
the 5th one.
yeah, and then Article 5 is the attempt to create the Employee Benefit Capital Reserve Fund. So this is wording that came directly from Gordon. We've talked about annually budgeting for teacher severance, and this would allow us to put money aside, but he worded it in a little bit more of an open-ended manner so that it covers not just the severance, but also if you have people who are, we didn't have the reserve fund or the I'm sorry, we didn't have a budget line for people that are changing plans, right? So if they go from a two-person plan to a family plan and that extra cost gets incurred, it just gets absorbed in the budget. This would allow us to have a reserve fund that we could tap into if we had those, and we wouldn't have to be budgeting guessing each year because we would park money aside for it. My understanding is the town has one. Is that accurate, or is it?
I believe, I would need to confirm that, I don't know.
I thought, well, I think the feedback from the or a budget committee member was like the towns, but I could have misheard that.
Yeah, I thought
I know
there
they
was.
talked about it with relation to the library. I'm not recalling if one was actually created, so.
But Gordon, as soon as I asked him, he came back with this language. So it's fairly standard language, but it allows us to do that. And here we're suggesting that we put into it, raise and appropriate, you have to figure out what the amount is. And I think, that I guess we're seeking the board's thought.
When is the budget committee voting on these articles? Do we know?
So tomorrow's just the presentations. I believe they're voting on the 5th, because the budget hearing is on the 12th.
Yeah.
Or, actually, I think they vote after the hearing, don't they? They get
a final crack at it
Yeah.
after the hearing, for sure.
So they vote prior, they have recommendations going in. So we get a final crack at it on the 4th, our next meeting, and then the budget committee would get their vote on the 5th, and budget hearing on the 12th, and then I think both groups, I seem to remember, that's when we stood on the floor down in the orchestra pit and sort of made final votes, right?
Yeah, if anything's changed at deliberative, then we vote again.
Right.
Well, that's deliberative, but this was after the
Oh.
budget hearing. I thought we gathered
Yeah, we might
and
have
sort
last
of
year.
based on feedback, although I think the gathering resulted in everybody saying, we're good as is. I don't think we made any adjustments, but.
We have made adjustments in years past at the budget hearing. Yep. Okay. What is the board's thoughts about adding the recommended athletic director position to a warrant article and asking the townspeople? I know there was.
I would be in favor of
I know there
that.
was a lot of discussion about it.
But we have an athletic director.
But it was changing the position.
District-wide.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, his contract says he teaches 2 classes? Or his contract doesn't say, I know there, prior to Josh, there were other ADs who thought the things they founded were important enough that they were gonna teach a class.
So I think the contract is silent to the teaching versus administrative piece. Because it's an individual contract for that position, and it does not, if I understand it correctly, it does not mention teaching. However, the practice had been that it was a part-time teacher, part-time AD.
Well, let me ask you this, then we're down to 1 health teacher and phys ed teacher combined. If Josh does 1 job, we already have 121 kids this semester who couldn't take gym.
Well, are you talking about what Mr. Hess and
It would be a
Josh
full-time-
proposed? You're talking about the bundle, so it would be.
But it would be a full-time phys ed position. We already have an AD, would be my guess. But he teaches classes, and that, he does not want to teach classes, he wants to be a full-time AD. And if that happens, there will be no electives in phys ed. She will only teach health and I keep wanting to call it gym, phys ed. So there will be no
This is the
elective.
package position where the proposal is to move the current part-time position that is unfilled to a full-time position. So that would be the second full-time teacher.
My thought is,
But we have an AD, it's not adding an AD.
my thought is
Correct, it's changing, I think his portion of it is less than $10,000.
Mr. Hess, right, and the athletic director made a compelling argument in early November when we were going through the budgets. I know there's been a lot of debate on the board, right? I'm not comfortable, and the board clearly isn't comfortable because it's not done, adding it into the budget itself, right, which was debated. But at the same time, I don't mind asking the people, right? If there's a compelling case and there's a need, put it as a warrant article and ask.
Well, I guess people will find out next year when the kids can't take strength training.
Put it as an article and ask.
Fit for Life, none of those classes will be available if Josh goes full-time AD. There will be none of that. And if Shannon decides not to teach a
Why
sixth
do you
period,
say there'll be none of that?
who's gonna teach it? Shannon has to teach health.
Again, this is bundled with the other part of their proposal, which was to move that part-time position to a full-time position. So in essence, there's,
increase,
you
not a
know, an
decrease.
increase.
I have concerns about the precedent we're setting by making a part-time teacher become a full-time teacher and needing a warrant article for that.
Because we did it with, didn't we do it with chorus?
We changed around the GMS part-time, there was two part-time positions that got
Still maintained the same
combined
number of positions, but we realigned the positions.
without.
What's the issue though? What's the concern? Other than you saying you have a concern, what's the actual
It's
concern about it?
setting precedent that we have to have a warrant article in order to
Make a part-time.
make a part-time position a full-time
Full-time.
position. I'm
I
not
see it
saying
as
no,
a package.
I'm saying
I see it as a package thing.
Why is it
To
a
me, because
It's making a
it's
half-time.
making
It's
the
a
athletic director
part-time to
district-wide.
full-time.
We already have an
Correct.
athletic director, so it is expanding the scope of that current
Right.
athletic director.
Yeah.
And then it is expanding the scope of that current part-time position to a full-time position. So for both of those, there are already established positions. It's just expanding the scope from a 50% to a full-time, or from an individual school to a district-wide. And I don't
But
know that
Josh
the
doesn't
place
have
for
to teach
that.
classes.
But I don't know that the place for that is a warrant article, is my concern.
Yep, mine too. Because as a school district, we need to be able to sometimes add positions, expand positions, and do those kinds of things without going to the voters first in order to meet kids' needs. So
But it sounds like we're not gonna be able to meet kids' needs in
No,
the current.
we are
system.
Right, that's
what
the
I'm trying to
thing.
solve for. That's what I'm trying to solve.
'Cause
That's
we-
what I heard from Jake and from.
We can't hire a part-time
That's what I
phys
want.
but
ed
if
teacher.
you're saying and you're agreeing that we're not gonna be able to meet
That's what I'm hearing,
needs,
and that's what I
why
heard.
did we not vote to add it in? That's my question.
That's my issue, because when this was presented, when this was presented by the principal and the athletic director, it was not included in the budget by the superintendent and administrative, because they did not see it as a compelling need compared to all of the other issues in the budget.
Music wasn't in there.
Right. We saw it, the three voted to add that back in. The athletic director, Tara, made a motion, and three voted no on that.
we voted.
I think
we
I was the
voted
only
no
one
on-
that
voted no
voted
because I wanted to
yes.
see
I voted yes.
We voted no on both of them originally,
then
and then
that's
we
wrong in the
re-voted on
minutes.
music.
Yep.
Yeah.
My point is that I am concerned about the precedent it sets expanding part-time positions. I think I agree with adding new positions. If we were creating a new position,
Yeah,
that would be
absolutely.
something that,
Right, it's
I
just
think-
expanding a
but it's
part-time
expanding a
position.
part-time, and I'm not sure the place for that is a warrant article. I still don't think it's dead in the water, because if there's enough support for it at deliberative, it can be added in.
That
We've
was
had
my
this
next-
conversation before over the years, and I think you were on the budget committee because we have the position, we just can't find anybody to teach the electives.
So I agree with Heidi. I think if there's community support, get to deliberative.
Deliberative
and
will be
add it-
where
add
it's
it
at.
in.
That's
It's
how
just a lot
music
harder
should have been
to
added
do.
then.
It's not already an existing warrant article, right?
So-
Because now you're adding a brand new
Yes.
article as opposed to amending one that's already being presented to you.
Right. I have a question for you, Dr. Jetty. When part of my argument of adding it back in was that for graduation, students need a half a credit of health and 1 credit of PE. I don't know if you remember your comment. You seem surprised that it was a full credit of PE.
And we have one
And I'm
teacher
wondering
teaching
if
those classes.
that has
One.
changed somehow in that, was everybody fully aware of what the graduation requirements were when this
Let me
was
explain my
recommended?
surprise on it, because that's fairly standard in high schools. You usually take a half a credit PE as a freshman, a half a credit PE as a sophomore, and then you take a half a credit of health. We have it embedded in the one course in 9th grade, right, for 1 credit, the wellness, right? The health and the PE. What I was surprised by is that you don't have to take a second course. You just need the second half a credit. And, you know, so when we were sitting here with the budget committee, Mr. Barca had talked about, you know, well, it seems a shame my daughter's a 3-season athlete and doesn't get the credit. And I said, she absolutely should. We were told she couldn't. And I'm like, it's an ELO, it's a standard ELO, absolutely.
That's
Does not have to, does not have to take that course.
Kids need to move during the day. If they need to play a trumpet, they can play a trumpet, but they need, some of my kids in general need an outlet during school. And Shannon Zepan is teaching all of the health classes and all the phys ed classes, and Josh is teaching 2 electives.
But it's an option for those that want to
That's all
pursue
I'm
it,
saying.
and there are some
My
that
kid
do
won't.
not, and that's okay.
Yeah,
Then
a
your
lot of
kid
kids won't.
would get their credit through the PE classes that
Who
are
has the
offered.
highest amount of students in their classes?
Oh, well, yeah, I looked. It was, oh gosh, this
Social studies.
Benoit?
and CPAN.
Because she teaches 6 classes to meet the needs of some students, or a group of students.
I mean, I hear you about perception. I appreciate that. I also think this is an opportunity for us to change the perception of how we operate as a board, right? All we're doing is asking a question. It's up to the town to decide.
But what if they don't support it and we add it anyway?
Well, then no
We
means no.
can't, no means
Yeah.
no.
You can't do that,
Yeah.
right? So if it fails, right, then it fails for a year.
Then why didn't we do that for music?
Because we voted to
We
put it
voted
back
to
in.
pass it.
So that's what I'm saying. It's not just perception, it's precedent. That's my issue, is that for any future part-time position that we may wish to expand down the line, if we vote as a school board to expand it, someone could say, but wait a minute, you voted to expand the last part-time position on a warrant article. You shouldn't be doing that as a board.
But the precedent, Heidi, is that it was denied at the board level. So now we're giving the town the opportunity to
Precedent,
have
we're
a
just
say.
asking.
So
To
that's
me,
the
this is just
precedent I
asking a
see
question.
from this.
People
What?
can
I
add-
think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing that we're asking the town. Like,
I
that's a perception I think is positive.
I'm
can
not
see
concerned
both
about
sides.
precedent, precedent, but that's the word I'm using, not perception. Perception is good, I agree with that. Again, but we're elected as school board members to make the decisions that we think are best.
And we made that decision by not adding it in. But I don't think it means that we can't ask.
So why would we not put anything that we may want as an ask, but not as do not find as a necessity as a warrant article?
Did the police ask part-time for the part-time police officers to go full-time if they have to go full-time?
I don't recall. I don't recall.
I guess what I'm saying is that as a school board, we have said that I haven't said that it's not important. I want to be clear. It is very important, but it is not something that is necessary for that year. So we would be putting and authorizing a warrant article for something that we don't think is necessary. But meanwhile, 51,000 of special education funding has been cut from the budget, which we did think was necessary, and
You still have the opportunity to vote on the warrant article and say, and if it's a 2-3 vote, then it's not recommended, but you're still asking the people, right? You're still voting on that article.
but where does that slippery slope end in terms of asking the people? So if we ask the people for that part-time position, do we ask the people about something else that we want? The gator. Let's put the gator on.
Let's.
But that's what I'm saying. We're gonna have 87 warrant articles.
Okay, we have 30 on the town side. You know what I mean? Like,
But okay. I mean, maybe that's just a different way of looking at it. I thought it was our job as elected school board members to make decisions about the budget. The town gets the final crack at it by Article 1, as it should be. But we're laying out and setting forth, with the help of the budget committee, what we think these funds should be going for. Again, I just don't know where that line ends in terms of, let's put the gator on, let's put this on, let's put the HR program that we wanted on, let's put the desk that this person, I mean, I don't know. Where does that
There's
stop?
lots of, like, what we do if Josh decides not to teach 2 classes, then it comes back to us, and they said no, so we can't add it? I don't know.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The
Yeah,
risk is
no
if they
means no,
vote
for
down
sure.
at the article, then we cannot do the
Do that.
position
That
next
is
year.
a downside of the warrant article process.
Right, if Shannon decides she's not gonna teach a sixth class and Josh decides he's not,
Then we
that
have to
doesn't.
be able to pivot. We have
Yeah.
to be able to.
Well, and the door is open
And that's
for
that's
us.
a compelling reason to me to not do it on an article,
Yeah.
right? Because we need to be able to provide the program in the event that this wouldn't pass.
Right.
Correct. Good word, compelling, I like that.
I did say pivot. I didn't
Pivot, yeah, yeah.
Someone can check that off the bingo card.
Does anybody want to reconsider their vote? There was some reconsideration for the music position. I made the original motion, so I would rely on somebody else to make a motion.
I'm not gonna
if
open a
they're-
can of worms on that
Okay.
one. I'm not gonna do it. Right, I would
Board
be,
has
I
spoken
would
on
be
their
supportive
priorities.
as a warrant
Alright.
article though.
I would be interested in talking about that more with you, though, in terms of, not necessarily in a meeting, but
Yeah,
at some
we'll
point.
go on for an hour.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, well,
Because we could,
we were almost on time.
I'm not so close-minded that I'm not willing to even think about it. I mean, it's an
There is a
it's
material
just an
difference.
interesting proposition to
There's
think
a
of.
material difference to me between the music position
Yeah.
that we talked about and the AD position.
Why?
Okay, here we go. The music
Sorry.
position was already a funded position. It was
Okay.
already in our budget that was then removed completely.
Okay,
Completely, right? I didn't agree with that cut,
all right.
right? But it's already a funded, fully funded position in our budget. The AD position is a change to what's already budgeted in our budget.
What do you mean?
It's an expansion of services.
No, it's not according to his contract. He doesn't
We're
have to
talking
teach
about
classes.
adding,
A part-time gym teacher to the part-time position, making
No,
it a
but
full.
making him from going from CHS to district-wide
Yes.
is what you're referring to.
that's
And
a
that
material
included-
difference to
That
me.
included a $9,000 bump in salary.
Yes.
And it
Right.
included
you.
expanding the part-time teaching
I can see
position
that.
to a
To me,
Okay.
that's the material
If
difference.
that's,
Right.
and that's your opinion,
Yeah.
and I
absolutely.
respect.
That is your opinion, yep.
Well, this has been a fascinating conversation.
Good job, everybody.
Okay.
One other warrant article. Sorry, guys.
Is that your favorite word?
No.
Pivot.
Pivot. Yes, we're going to pivot to another warrant article.
Okay.
I know a couple of months ago we talked about enhancing Wi-Fi at the buildings for connectivity for students. My thought out of that
We
discussion.
did that.
What?
I thought
No,
we did that.
we didn't do that. But the comment made when we brought this up was we're looking at proposals to increase and improve Wi-Fi. Where do we stand with that?
So what we have to do is be compliant with, I'm not gonna use the right terminology on this, so I'll do my best. But basically, I walk into CHS with this device, it's my own personal device.
Bring your
I
own device. is
launch
that it?
into that. In most cases, the Wi-Fi captures all my information, so it knows the device information, ownership, et cetera. We don't currently have that. We just have an open Wi-Fi, kind of like you're at the shopping mall. So it's the difference between you're in an airport and you have to agree to the term, and by the way, they've stuck something on your phone and they've harvested your information. You go into a free Wi-Fi and they say, be careful, anything could happen here, and you agree to it anyway. That's what we had. We want to get to the point that we can track a device, so that if we have somebody who's doing something inappropriate, we can actually trace it back to an owner, which is not, and that's what, so again, is that a federal law? I'm not sure. There's some requirement, and that's what Chris is working on, to launch that ability to know exactly who it is. You're choosing to sign in, you're accepting the terms, and by the way, we're now tracking that device.
So it's not necessarily about increasing connectivity amongst the
But
buildings.
that will allow connectivity because
But-
nobody can use their cell phone.
Yeah, because currently, so only staff, I believe, can get on with the device. But to do that, I have to bring it to tech support, and I'm not quite sure what they do.
Your son was in the middle of it during gym class.
But,
They control the password.
yeah,
I think the password got out and some students
Yeah.
have it.
Yeah,
I
sure,
think there was
the
that
password got out.
issue.
They have the
right?
password.
But typically, even if I go into, it doesn't work. It's completely blocked. Right, and the feedback was in the event of an emergency, all this, you know,
Right.
that was the community feedback that we received. And
Right.
But we
the
also have to-
response to that was we're looking into enhancements to Wi-Fi.
yeah. So
Cover
the
ourselves.
enhancement is
Yeah.
that security piece, to make
Yes.
sure that we know whose device it is. Because it's great, 99% of our people are gonna be honest, responsible
Right.
users. They accept the thing they haven't read anyway, but then they do the right thing, right? It's that 1% that we're on the hook for because it is our device, And that's where we just need to make sure that, so when I bring it to tech and they log me in, I don't even know what the password is. They've connected me, but they also know I have a device on it.
So they can go on your device and see what,
I don't believe that's the case now, but in the future, when you accept that, and, so last night I was at a concert at Merrimack Valley. I went to the high school. You want to use the guest Wi-Fi? Sure. I got that whole interface. I didn't read it. I accepted it, and I was on the Wi-Fi. But I know they also know it's Mike Chetty's iPhone.
Yeah, it's something like an IP address or something.
Yeah. And so,
So that's the piece we're working on.
I was responsible in my use, but that's the piece that we're working on, and I'll get an update from.
So
Back
does that
to
have
warrant
a
articles,
cost?
right, my understanding was there was an enhanced technology cost associated with that change.
Let me get back to you on it.
And I'd love to be able to have that as a warrant article.
but what if they say no?
No, we can't do it.
Then we have to wait another year, which is the same position we're in right now.
But no, but
No
I think.
different than
What if
today.
there's a grant opportunity for
Right,
that?
right.
I'm fearful that this is not an inexpensive change.
I understand that.
Right.
I understand that, but my fear is that it's a necessary security item, that if no means no, then we can't do it for another year.
Yeah, but we're already not doing it, so.
Right, so in my opinion, I'd rather get it done sooner than later.
Absolutely.
Let me get a
But I think
report
this
from
is
Chris
a
on
case
the
that the town
compliance question, so.
All right, thank you.
All right, state building aid.
So just, I didn't hear any adds to this. We'll bring it back on the 4th.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna have the similar structure, and we'll work a little bit more on the numbers that we're
Perfect.
gonna put in there, okay? So, thank you for that. So state building aid, so this I do wanna project, because I think it would be helpful if the public followed along with it.
You have 15 minutes max.
There you go,
I have a
Liz.
thing now. Yeah.
Get on there.
So the first thing I provided to the board is the ranking press release, so you see exactly what the Department of Education put out. The second link is the one that I'm gonna display,
This is fascinating.
which is Doug created a spreadsheet, and he took all the numbers from the other and used those. And I think this is incredibly, incredibly telling. Because when you look at these numbers, basically Litchfield GMS is up here in yellow, and you can see that we earned 642 points, okay? The ones that are in green down below, which are Colebrook, Concord, Monadnock, and Rochester, are the other schools that beat us in terms of the total number of points. So when you hear we're ranked 5th, and you see that number 5 up there in terms of the total points, that's where we stand, is ranked 5th. I'm gonna come back to that in a minute.
Oscar, are you able to put this on the TV? Are you able to?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Can you zoom in a little bit too? Because I think people aren't gonna be able to see.
It tells a story for sure.
Well, how's it look up there?
Yeah.
All right, I'll get it in
It just
bigger
looks so tiny.
into everybody's living room. There we go.
Okay,
So one of our legislators mentioned that there was gonna be no building aid.
So I think we want to have this, we want to have this dialogue, but let me just point, there's one other really poignant thing, and that is column number 2, which is the total number of points awarded, not including what's called the free and reduced lunch score. So in other words, they look at how many students there are receiving free and reduced lunch in a community, and if you are an impoverished community, you get 200 points toward your overall ranking. And if you're a marginally impoverished community, you get 100 points. And if you are neither of those, you don't get any points. And it's really, excuse me, it's really important to focus on this, because when you back those points out, we got 0. Litchfield is not a community. It's got high property wealth in the grand scheme. And so, we ended up with 642 points because we didn't score any there. But then everything else left are unsafe conditions, fire safety, unsafe conditions, structural, unsafe conditions, other, unsafe conditions, environmental, unsafe conditions, traffic, security updates, where are you with security, inefficient or unsuitable conditions with the building envelope, inefficient or unsuitable conditions with mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. Inefficient or unsuitable conditions with ADA, Americans with Disability Act. inefficient or unsuitable conditions in educational spaces, overcrowding and increased enrollment, operational efficiency, maintenance, high-performance design. Are you planning to build an energy and resource-efficient building?
Did these other schools not have a design, or they're not high-efficient
No,
schools?
they had those. You'd have to go down that
I was just
category to
curious.
see. But my point is that when you back that out, just the free and reduced numbers, we come in second in the state. Our 642 points is only beat by Colebrook, which receives 672 points. So we're 30 points below Colebrook's score on the facility and the design work that we've been doing. Why is that important to me? It's important because we've been making the case with the public that our building is in rough shape and it needs to be replaced. This tells me that you had 3 people from the state who visited 17 school projects, who heard everybody talk, saw the tour, walked around, did the whole 9 yards. And at the end of the day, they said, based on the facility, the second neediest project in the state is in Litchfield, New Hampshire, and it's the Griffin Memorial School.
We scored maximum points on unsafe, it's insane. Where is it?
So one of the things that I was asked by Marion Colby at the CIP committee to explain, like, what is unsafe conditions other? And I said, let me try to get you an answer. So I went back and I looked, and what's interesting is on the Building 8 application, it has unsafe conditions as the category, and it says there's 250 points, which are in those columns, by the way. They've broken them out to 50, 50, 30, 70, but I can't tell what went into the other category. It's the rubric, or the scores don't really match up to the application, because it had in parentheses a series of things, and I just don't know what ended up in this category. So unfortunately, I can't answer that question directly.
The traffic conditions, the fact it's so close to the road, after we hear so many things about people driving into businesses, and even if there's an emergency at school, my biggest fear when my son was in that front classroom is he would run out in the middle of the road, because they'd have to stop traffic to evacuate to the farm or wherever they went. So
You know, the other piece is the security updates. So we came in 8th in security updates because we built a secured
grants.
lobby.
Yep.
We got the grant, we built a secure entry area. But
still got a 67.
other schools who hadn't done that got more points, right? So, you know, we lost out on, 33 points there? And we were how far behind?
30.
Yeah, okay. So you see, all these little pieces that I just think help everybody understand. And to me, we still hear from people in the community, you don't need a school. And I point to this to say, apples to apples comparison of districts that think they need a school, and invited a team in to show why they needed a school, and we scored very highly on that. If we were coming in, 12th out of 17, I think we have to reassess where we sit, but that's not where we landed. So
We scored higher than the one that got the grant money, like for unsuitable conditions, MEP. We were first, they had 7. We got 20, they got 7 points.
Yeah.
Wow. Fascinating.
So
when can we go back and apply for Building 8 again? What's that process?
So here's the thing, we're on the list now. Remember, this is for the biennium that starts in July.
Yep.
So the current legislature, which is building a budget, this will be a 2-year process. The question is, how much money do they put in the pot? So let's talk about the money in the pot. And then let's talk about how long we stay on it. So we actually stay on the list as long as the town of Litchfield and the Litchfield voters continue to make headway toward the project and show good faith efforts. So for example, we have to flush all this out with the state to know exactly what that means. But a bond vote for the land shows a good faith effort to resolve this and to build a school, right? So that would be, you stay on the list now. And then if we put money aside for architectural funds, that would be a good faith effort. The other thing is there's a little bit of a game that goes on, because if the towns who beat us don't pass a bond and aren't making the good faith effort, then we qualify for the money. So historically, there has been $50 million available for schools in this scenario. If you do the math on that, the $50 million, if Colebrook, Rochester, and Monadnock all pass bonds, then there's no money left for Concord, let alone Litchfield, which is number 5. But if one of those districts fails to pass a bond, then that money is still in the pot, and if Litchfield passes it, we could qualify for funding. It's all keeping us on the list and making headway and showing that, showing the state that we're serious about getting the school built.
Is it evenly spread $10 million per?
No.
It's not. If you go to the press release, you can see, I mean, Concord's project is huge.
Get like
They would
9.
gobble up, they exceed the 50 million, right? So that's part of the problem of sitting behind Concord. But
we also think with Concord that they wouldn't get the total amount of what's in there as well, what they put in for, because part of what they're put in for is a YMCA, and we can only get funded for the K through 4 portion of it, not even the preschool. I don't believe they can get funded for YMCA at a building aid, and they also exceed the maximum per square foot. So whatever they have would be prorated down to what the state is saying, this is the maximum we would want to fund you per square foot.
in analyzing this, Kyle was very optimistic that there will be building aid available to Litchfield down the road. The other piece is that so let's say we go 2 years, make headway, stay in the pool, you go to the next biennium after that. And I don't like talking about any of this because to me that's dragging it out, but if you do, you maintain your current status. And the only way you can get beat is if a school comes along with worse life safety code issues, they would jump ahead. But otherwise, you maintain your status. So we could be in the biennium down the road, if 3 schools get built, we could be number 2 at that point. And then it brings us back to the point that you made. The governor has said he has verbalized that not doing building projects is important to him because of the coming recession and the concern about the impact that it would have. So he has said that. Now, that doesn't mean he's putting 0 in the building aid line. We don't know what that means. And we all know there's a whole legislative process. And frankly, with the House and Senate being so divided, who knows what's going to happen? I think there's a real chance for us to advocate with our local representatives. Both Rich and Ralph are former school board members. They're not unfamiliar with the argument about the Griffin Memorial School. And I think, asking them to advocate, there are several LSRs for increasing the amount of money that is available to schools. So it has not been settled yet as to exactly what's going to be available. You're right. What you heard is what I heard the governor say, but we're still making sausage, and we don't know how it's going to land in terms of the way this whole thing will fall out. I had a phone call yesterday from the Concord superintendent. There's an LSR to increase the amount of money in the pool to $100 million because the legislator who's proposing that said the state had a surplus of $450 million. And so investing back into schools and the infrastructure makes sense in that legislator's mind. Selfishly, I go,
Yay.
We're stuck because this perception of, and we all know, I mean, the overall ask on the Litchfield taxpayers is going to be huge. We know that. We need building aid in order to make this come together. And so our best case, I think, is to advocate for additional building aid to be available. The argument that the bill sponsor is making is that it resides, we have the money, it's in the rainy day fund, or it's available. I said to Kathleen Murphy, the superintendent, and she reached out to me, to superintendent in Hampstead, superintendent in Derry. They're further down on the list if you look. But I said to her, well, I also think we have to build the coalition bigger than just schools because it's good for New Hampshire jobs. I mean, we all see the guys that are rebuilding
I'm very impressed
LMS. I
with
mean, you're
North Branch.
investing
I'm
back
very
in
impressed.
the New Hampshire economy with these workers that are just doing incredible work down there. And so I think there's a real win-win here to keep that money going toward investing back into our infrastructure. So So that's my pitch, that's where it all stands. I'm curious what the pleasure of the board is. I would suggest that we invite Richard Ralph to a meeting. I don't know if that's a facilities improvement meeting, I don't know if it's a full board meeting, I don't know if it's a letter, but there are plenty of LSRs that they could examine, and, you know, at the end of the day, they are champions for our town, and
Have they seen this?
I don't know, and I'd be happy to go through this with them too. So I don't know where they sit with
Yeah.
their knowledge of where this all landed, so.
I feel like a facilities meeting would be the natural.
But I don't want to misspeak, but there were definitely public comments by Mr. Boehm on not being supportive of a new school, or really any asks of the school district as of recent.
It's unfortunate.
Well, hopefully, maybe he'll come listen. And at least there's a conversation that can be had, and this
Yeah.
information can be shared, and maybe it'll change some minds.
So you want me to invite them to a facilities meeting?
Both of them, yeah.
Yep.
Great. Moving on to solar.
Were you looking for a vote on this, the power purchase agreement?
Yeah, so
tonight?
this is the final power purchase agreement. Now, again, I thought you had it over the weekend. If you're not ready to vote on it, it's okay.
Yeah.
We can take time.
Has this been vetted by legal?
Pardon?
This has gone through legal?
Yeah, so just so you know, we've been going back and forth between Kay's company and Diane Goro, the attorney, back and forth. There's been, I mean, this is, first of all, you can see that's way above my pay grade in
Yeah.
terms of understanding exactly how to get all this right, compliant with the laws, et cetera. I finally said, we got down to a couple nudgy things, and I said, Kate, call Diane and work this out. Just
Yeah.
do it directly. So I'm out of the middle on it. And then Diane said, this is what she is recommending that the board agree
Okay.
to. So, you know, the basic terms of it from the financial side are the $97,000 annual payment. You're actually only gonna pay 95 because you're getting the licensure for the roof. It's like sports franchises, I guess. We're licensing the roof to the power company. And then you can also see that it talks about, you know, we always had the intent to purchase in year 6. But if we didn't do that, you can see how it then continues, because the company that funded this will lose the incentives that they're able to qualify for.
That was my question. If there are any rebates for solar and things like that, who do they go to, us or them?
So they're able to qualify for some of the rebates, although the change in the law made it so that, and we're still waiting for the guidance to come out on this, so we believe there are some.
Because there'll be money.
Correct. And
out
so that's a separate piece that we need to wait for the IRS to come out
Okay.
with ruling sometime this spring.
So that could affect this purchase and sales? Or this
I don't
I think it would
think
be
it
like a
could. I think the
rebate, a
purchase and
solar
sales,
rebate.
I think the purchase and sales is the purchase and sales.
Yeah, okay.
The additional, possible additional expenditures are relative to all the other energy improvements we made to make solar viable.
Yeah.
So those are building, design rebates that we were qualified for.
So I guess, what's the big number? What's the bottom
Yeah.
line? Where is that?
What's the 6-year, what's the year 6 balloon payment?
That's what he was just saying. If we
Don't
don't
have to.
purchase by then, that's when they start losing their,
Yeah, I understand,
Rebate
but
benefit.
so what in year 6 can we expect to pay?
So go to the
it's in the
payment,
contract page, so scroll
97?
down, I think, to page 3.
so you can see the 97,619.
Yeah, I see that.
Minus the 2,500 gets you to 95. And then in year 7, if we haven't purchased, the incentives for the company dry up, and so now the costs start to escalate, and you can see it goes up to 114, then 117, et cetera. So where's the buyout clause, though?
Right.
Right.
I mean, I see gross payment up to 536,000 under the bold bullet 5. Is that it? What's the 536,000?
It's about cookies.
Gross payment up to
Yeah,
536.
so the gross payment is the amount in the column, so it's the the 97,619 for the first 6 years.
Got it.
And what that is to buy, they have committed to providing us 536,000 kilowatt hours per year. And so part of what they have to get right is the number of cells and the optimization with the capacitors, storage, et cetera, because if they don't deliver that, then they have to purchase it on the Eversource side. So, we have a fixed electric price, the 97.
It's like 880 cells. It's a lot.
But it's in that, but somewhere there is the buyout, what we can purchase. I just gotta find the clause, so bear with me.
You can send some over to my house.
Well, it's not in the search term buyout.
No, it's,
Balloon payment.
Yeah, balloon,
Outages.
Nope.
Liens, security.
final, I don't know.
So do you need a vote tonight, or can we have?
we do
some
not need a
time to
vote
review?
tonight,
Good.
but I'm frustrated because I can't point you right at the
Yeah.
number.
Yeah, we wouldn't want to vote before we can find the buyout number
Yeah,
either. So
exactly.
I'm
Off on
searching
this.
as well.
Yeah,
I don't know why it's not easier to find.
table to the next meeting.
Is there 33 pages?
Yeah, I want to be able to read this contract.
I'll make a motion to table this for the next meeting.
That's fair.
Exhibit 4 is
I'll second.
it's the
We have a motion.
estimated buyout calculation, just so
Okay.
people know, so that is.
Where's it,
What
exhibit
page are you
4?
on?
Exhibit
Exhibit
4, one of the very last pages.
Okay.
Looks like the
Page
attorney
32.
started at the end and worked
Oh.
their way back, and the rest of us were trying to
There
get
it is,
there.
yeah.
The bottom line, right?
Got it.
Termination payment, there it is.
544,874.
We have a motion to table this discussion and a second.
I agree, we still need to spend more time looking at it,
If-
so.
And, yeah, you absolutely should. I will say that number is consistent with what we had projected, so that's
Yeah.
not a surprise number. I was looking for a number in the 500
Yeah.
to 600,000 range. I think we said 625 was the number that we used with the public, if I remember correctly. But this is where it actually lands. And the other thing is, we always approached it as an absolute, we had to purchase it. And this isn't written in that way. This is written in, or not, and if you don't,
Yeah.
you're just gonna pay for it. So the question is,
Pay a lot.
Yeah,
But-
you do.
Makes 0 cents to go past year 6.
But we're
but
not
for
paying
how
for
many years to
electricity.
add up to 544?
Right.
It's
You know,
like
that's,
3,
Yeah.
there you go.
4 at that rate. Yeah.
So they're definitely putting the incentive in to buy the thing, which is again what we had
Right, that
committed
was the
to.
plan.
With,
Yeah.
I'll say it out loud, we kick that can. We're like, we'll figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
But anyway,
So what are the repercussions if this board doesn't vote to approve this contract? Then what?
you're buying electricity from Eversource.
So then we don't move forward with solar. I'm just trying to play this out. If this gets voted down, then what?
You are buying electricity from Eversource. So you switched over to electric. Of course, now we have, what is it? Free fusion coming in 10 years, whatever they said on the news yesterday, right? So,
Yeah, I saw that.
but, you're switching over to all the electric. As Doug said, the money is in the budget this year with the oil savings, right? So the oil that we're still using is what we put in the ground in June.
Yeah.
So that's good news. But it will create a hole.
And it's not what we presented to taxpayers.
Correct.
That was approved.
Okay, we have a motion on the board, a motion and a second to table this discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
I do have one more question.
Sure.
And it's not about the contract per se. Why are we creating a shell company called Litchfield Power Investors?
So it's not a shell company.
Well, that's how it reads to me. Like, why are we creating a company named after the town that the solar array is going in?
So that's Kay's company. So Kay's company is, what is it, Introspective?
Introspective, or, yeah, dynamic grid or introspective.
So that's-
Dynamicgrid.ai.
That's the company. But the investors who are purchasing the array, it's not her company purchasing that. She has found an investment group called Litchfield Power, whatever it is, Litchfield Power.
That's actually their name, just coincidence.
No,
She's
No, it's
founding
just
it.
for this
She's
project.
founding
For
it.
this project,
For this
that's
project,
correct.
because they're investing in this
They're
project.
investing in this project. I mean, to be honest, I don't know if we can, I don't know if people can buy into those shares or how that all works, but there are, those are the investors for the
Right.
project. Remember, we did not qualify for some of the federal tax incentives. That's the way to fund this. It's not unlike, it doesn't matter which company you go with. If you went with another solar company, they'll do the same thing.
All right,
Okay.
moving on to old business.
Old business, policy committee discussion. We've expressed an interest in establishing a policy committee at previous meetings. The majority of the board's policies have been reviewed, revised, and approved through a comprehensive policy review for the past 2 years. A policy tracking tool has been developed to be able to track the policy's dates of approval, which policies remain to complete. Thoughts on a policy committee? Thoughts?
So my understanding is the policy committee would review, compare to the school board association's model language, perhaps any other legislative language that they might need to look at, federal law, et cetera, and bring forward a proposal that would still be reviewed by the board. It would just be succinctly putting forward policy that has updated language. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And who would be on this committee?
That's up to us, it sounds like. I expressed before, I'm still willing to be on this committee, or, you know.
You could be the committee.
Well, I don't know if I want to be it by myself, but I am definitely willing to, this is in my wheelhouse, so.
But this is because we do not have Michelle doing this anymore.
Right.
And she had proposed a fairly, a big committee with a lot of people on it, and I felt like, well, I think you want to invite, like, Mary doesn't need to be on the policy committee if you're not discussing
Right.
a policy that isn't curriculum, instruction, assessment, right? So I think we have to strategically say, all right, here are the oldest ones, or here are the things that are most pressing, or here are things that we just want to get after, or here's some legislative changes we need to review. We've sort of picked that way, and then we say, who needs to review the work that we're doing? With the power of the Google, you know, if we have the document in Google Docs, we can share it and get feedback from people. It's not as if you have to, you know, sit and hammer it out in a room.
But who would volunteer for this? I would not, because it is not in my wheelhouse. Like, do we have teachers? Do we have community members? Do we have other?
Again, I think if it's a high school credit thing, you involve the high school
Right.
team in that, and you say, admin team, take a look, involve your curriculum folks, and Mary. So you
Just
There's
another
that-
thing on that
Remember,
part.
there's that model that was presented at the New Hampshire School Boards Association.
And what I didn't link here is, we have that grid. We're actually not in that bad a shape, if you remember when you looked at
I
it.
feel
or-
like we've done hundreds.
We've done a
Yeah.
lot. But,
Yeah, and then you start over again.
Yeah.
exactly, it's never
Right.
done. It's
Yeah,
never
it's
done.
never done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like housework.
Because you're supposed to be reviewing policy and updating them every.
I'm
Years.
fine with the policy committee. Personally, I don't know how anyone else feels about that.
Does anyone else want to do it? I certainly don't want to.
I don't mind helping, but it's got to be one of these things where it's not like at a 3 p.m. thing. I wouldn't be able to make it. There's no way.
Right.
That's the challenge that I have.
Does it have to
Well,
be a
my
meeting?
thought would be, I mean, maybe the policy committee meets at 5 before a 5:30 board meeting, or not to talk about what's going to be on that next,
Right.
but just it coming early.
Right.
In
And I
advance.
think, you know, when we've done policy work, we have the policy, we review it, we make comments, we ask questions, and then, you know, a lot of that can just be done behind the scenes, and then that committee just comes to the meeting with, this is our recommended policy.
So if the board's okay with this, I'm hearing one person with a passion for it.
Start it up tomorrow.
I don't know. Ask me again.
Wheelhouse, passion, I'm stretching.
Right now, I gotta take a break.
Yeah.
That,
What?
Okay.
okay?
I'm sorry?
Yes.
So-
She said she could do it at the beginning of the year. Well, is this something you
I
could
said
send
I
out
would
an email?
consider at the beginning
No,
of the
she said
year,
she would
so
do
we'll
it.
see.
Right now, it's just a very busy time for,
Yeah.
for all of us.
Yeah, it's not a
Yeah.
good month to start to get recruit people.
Well, again, I think time is on our side. It is dirty laundry. It's never
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
And the minute you think it's done, somebody throws something else at it. So it's just one of those things.
Could it be a committee that we have public input on?
Absolutely can. And
I'm not sure who would want to do that,
but if I can sort of get the clearinghouse built, right? So can you log into the policy manual on the school board association?
Yeah.
You can?
Yeah.
I can't. Or if I can, I don't know where it is. So we have to get our kind of like, okay, how are we gonna go? What's our housekeeping? And then we'll go from there. I mean, frankly, I
There may be
relied on
prior
Michelle.
school
She
board
logged in
members
and got me what I needed, so I have to
Oh,
fix
that would be
that.
good. We could reach out to prior school board members.
Like Rob Myers, maybe?
Yeah.
You know, somebody who already has had an in-depth.
In tune with the policies, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I bet he's
Yeah.
dying to do it.
Well, those are the people that naturally come to me, you know?
That's a good point.
All right, so we'll communicate
coordinate.
and get some game plan.
Great.
We will not lose our momentum, so.
Policy regarding special ed underspend. We've been asked to consider a policy that clearly states any underspend in the 1,200 accounts be returned to the taxpayers as end-of-year fund balance.
I thought we voted on this to do it.
Did
Yeah.
vote
So
on
we
it.
did for 1 year.
Yep.
If I remember, we did for that budget year, and then Mr. Sun sent an email to us asking us to consider making it a standing policy that could be adopted by a board each year, but that it was the standing policy. I'd have to go dig out the email, but that was
the question asked.
that was the question asked, is has the board considered making it a standing policy, so that's not something that is necessarily addressed on a year-to-year basis beyond approving.
Because we have that safety account.
It's my view that this will be continue to be a conversation every year.
I think it should be a
It should be.
conversation every
I'm
year.
fine with it being a conversation every year, right? But I think it's also a good policy for this current year for us to put in place.
It is in place. We voted on
Yeah.
it.
Yes,
But we
correct.
actually didn't write a policy.
Right.
Yeah,
we
but
did-
we
we-
said we
But we
would.
made a statement.
Yeah.
Voted on it, yeah.
We voted on it, yeah.
So
And
then
I
we
think the argument against having a formal policy on this is that you're committing future boards to that handshake agreement that has been supposedly long-standing.
It's kind of like the bylaws in my mind, right? That the budget committee put in place years ago. It's reviewed and accepted, voted on every year, typically in April.
Right, and I think that should be, the future board should have that ability to vote on it.
Yep.
Depending on the circumstances at the time, as they go through the budget process.
So we don't need to do anything additional, is what I'm hearing. Is that sound right?
I think we need to put in a policy in place. So who will spearhead drafting that policy?
Somebody make a motion to draft a policy?
Sure, it'll be like a 2-sentence thing, but I'd like to make a motion where I will draft a policy regarding the return of special education funds for fiscal year '24.
I second that. All those in favor?
We
Well, the discussion is that we've already voted on
already
this.
voted on it, yeah.
But there's no policy.
Right. You
Right.
had, I was just asked to make a motion, right, to be the author of a draft policy for the board consideration.
But it needs to say in a yearly basis.
It'll say,
Yeah.
my motion was for fiscal year '24.
Yeah. We have a first and a second.
Heidi, did I say it right? You're playing it back in the head. I can see it.
I am.
Read
because
back the motion.
I'm trying
What
to
was the
remember
motion?
exactly what we voted on at that, but I'm trying to remember exactly what
We had
that was.
voted on well, I have to go back to the minutes to see it exactly, right? But
Right.
what I believe we voted on is the acceptance that, yes, we are going to return the money. This is now the policy, the actual language that says we're
That
going
goes
to do
along
that.
with that.
Okay,
That's what I'm thinking of it. I'm thinking of that.
okay, yeah.
So is the policy to have the board consider, and vote each year on returning the money?
Yeah, see,
Yes.
that's the
Annual review.
difference that I see. The policy is more addressing what happens in future years, whereas what we voted on was related to FY 23-24.
Right. We voted on
The
a
policy will be
procedure.
written to be very specific for fiscal year '24, which is, it's not intended to say for fiscal
But I-
year '25, '6.
My gut is saying that a policy is different from a procedure. We voted on the procedure of returning the money from the 1,200 account.
Let me get legal counsel.
Yeah, Heidi?
This is really
Semantics?
specific.
It is very
Policy, I
specific.
consider to be something that we
Revisit every year.
revisit.
Or
Not
As
necessarily. It's it's as needed because we have policies that we don't touch every year. So policy to me is more
The
setting
standing
the
order.
precedent for future years, whereas what we did was related to one specific year.
I like your concept of policy and procedure.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
But I think it should be written
So
somewhere.
I think if we're gonna do a policy,
Yeah, it
it
does.
should say that it should be addressed in, I don't know,
Procedure?
October of each year, or whatever I don't know when the right time is, whenever the budget's coming up.
The one thing that makes it tricky is that this board is building the budget. This board took a vote. But the board enacting the budget could be entirely different. And so then they could re-vote on policy. That's where I get myself tripped up.
Right.
Because the original request from the school board, go back a year plus, I think, and correct me if I'm off by base, was a memo of agreement. Which isn't a policy that could be changed. It sort of is, hey, this is what we've agreed to do. Now, again, that's not, I guess a future board could ignore that, but I think they ignore that at their peril. I don't know. It's tricky, because what we were trying to do is to just reduce handshake agreements to writing, so
Right.
that everybody was clear on exactly what it said. But the budget committee,
Expectations,
But it's
right?
not in writing.
the budget committee did not want to do that at the time.
We could ask them if that, that is a good way to memorialize what we have agreed to do.
Did we
without
actually use the
setting a
term policy in early November?
No.
In
I
our,
don't think we did. I think we said, let me look.
Let's find the minutes.
I would like to see something in writing.
November,
Yeah.
Policy, procedure.
I make a motion to table this to the next meeting until we can do
either
our
the first or
research.
the third. Do you think it was the first night or the second night when we were in the fire station? I think that's where the motion was, right?
I
It
think
was the fire
se-
station.
Yeah, it was when we did the special ed budget, which I
the
believe
second
was,
night.
Yeah,
And
Yeah,
it was
number-
November 3rd.
Right.
So November
Yeah.
3rd, those are the minutes that
Yeah.
you're gonna want to look at.
okay.
Yeah.
I'd prefer to have a memo of understanding between the school board and the town, or the school board and the budget committee. I don't know what the other body would be.
Do we have any other MOUs, MOAs, whatever we're
I thought
calling
we
them?
used the term policy in that vote. So,
Right?
I feel like there's gonna be other things that come up, so maybe whatever this is, it's the start of that MOA.
Doug, can
potentially.
you-
Even if it's one thing for right now, things are gonna be added to
Can
it.
you remind us, the budget committee has cut money from special ed, correct?
They have, yep,
Yeah, they just cut
51,000.
50-something thousand.
51,800.
51,000.
they started at 200, if I saw that
Yeah.
correctly.
Sorry,
Yeah.
much higher than 51,000.
But
Whatever we
remind me
voted on
when-
didn't have an impact.
When there was the agreement in place, were there still cuts made to special ed budget?
No.
So,
That's the key.
so here's the other piece is that you voted to do something
They
and now
still
cuts
cut
have
it.
been made anyway.
Yep.
So I'm sort of like, I just don't,
Yeah.
I don't understand where we are with the whole question.
I think it's a school boards and budget committee discussion that needs to happen.
To get all the handshake agreements on its MOUs, MOAs.
Right, so the
You know, so I don't-
agreement is, if we agree to this, you agree not to cut. That's the MOA.
And I don't know if they made the cut because you didn't put it in writing policy. I'm just unclear on that cut, but that cut did get made and, anyway.
You searching the minutes, Heidi?
I am
Yeah.
searching the minutes, yeah. I haven't found it yet.
I thought it was a policy.
All right, we've tabled it.
Yeah.
All right, we'll table this discussion.
Yep, I'm still gonna keep looking, but go ahead.
Okay, independent audit, draft of scope.
Okay, I sent you the latest link.
Yes.
Did anything change?
And the only thing that changed was timing. I put everything in yellow. There's not much in yellow, but I put the new timeline in yellow. And of course, I don't have it up right now,
It's right
so
here.
I would look over Liz's shoulder. So the yellow didn't come through on yours.
That's okay.
Interesting. All right, so nothing in the beginning. Oh, that's the wrong date. So don't click on the agenda. Click on the one that I emailed you, Liz.
Sorry.
All right, hold on. I'll get it. There it is. Okay. All right. So essentially, we are back about 3 weeks from when I originally did this, but the RFP would be due mid-January. A few days later, we'll be able to look at the proposals that we get, and then we'll notify the selected company. And then from work commencing to preliminary findings would be about 6 weeks. I feel like that's a significant chunk of time that hopefully they can find preliminary findings by then.
Yeah, that, I don't know that we can lock in a date on that, right?
Approximate.
That's really
Preliminary
dependent upon the work.
I just put target timeline up at the top, so if they come back to us saying that's not possible, then
Right.
we'll know. And then the written report by June. And so that was the only thing that changed, along with putting the school board as the contact.
Make a motion to approve the RFP.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained.
Thank you for doing that, Tara.
5
So
0
I'll
0.
turn this into a PDF. I will send it to the school board. Anybody who knows anybody at accounting firms, please send it to them. I know somebody, or Doug, can you send it to Plosnick and Sanderson as well?
They would not do it.
They would not do it.
They're
Okay.
they're a regular auditor.
They're
right?
regular, they already told me
All
they
right.
they would not do it.
Sounds good. Okay, and then, so I think Doug said he could get
Yeah,
it
so-
put on the
I was
website.
gonna say we post it, right? As
And
an
then I know
open-
somebody at Melanson Heath. Does anybody know anybody already that they
We
can
just put
think
out a
of?
post, right? If you,
Mm-hmm.
whoever's in control of Facebook land, to say, hey, we put out this RFP.
Do you wanna do that, Tara?
I can do a post, yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. All right, done.
Excellent.
Part one.
Nice,
Anything else
thank you.
under that?
Nope.
I thought we were done with COVID.
Well, so I want to talk with the board about that.
I'm looking at
Not done with
numbers and there's like 1 or 2 people with COVID and there are 28 kids out. And I'm sure this district is just like every other district. There are so many things going on.
Yeah. So,
Flu, all that stuff.
I mean, full disclosure, since I'm sitting here masked, I mean, I have a nasty, good old-fashioned chest cold. It's the one that my kids had, and I've tested negative for COVID. It's not what it is, but it's still nasty. So, and 5 years ago, I wouldn't have worn a mask. I would have just coughed on you. So now I'm smartened up, like I got to protect everybody, right? So, so we took this off the website. If you go to the website, the coronavirus link is no longer a flag there. We just sort of have quietly taken this down because, as you said, the numbers, we have high absence rates. We have a lot of stuff going on, but it's not COVID related. So we're sort of tracking something that is not really the cause. And the other is we did an update to the health screening because the state has come out with guidelines that really limit schools' ability to exclude students from school pending COVID tests. So I think the state is recognizing a lot of it does not come back to be COVID. So all this testing and staying out steps are unnecessary. So we backed off on all of that. I will share with the board, there are some parents who are concerned about this. They want the numbers. They want to know exactly where it stands. They're worried about COVID and the impact that it's having. And you know what my stance on it is that if there's a situation in a classroom, it would be up to the principal to communicate, hey, we've got a lot of kids out with a virus in a certain classroom, so please remind your kiddo, wash their hands, encourage them to wear a mask, it's okay, you know,
Yeah.
and all of those things, but it would be done the way we used to do it when we had an outbreak
Right.
of the flu or whatever.
Right.
It was really on a,
Are we doing those same things now? Is the nurse visiting classrooms and reviewing, this is how we wash our hands to make sure the germs are,
I
I mean,
believe so, but.
because for years we'd get, okay, there's an outbreak of strep. These are the symptoms to look out for. This is the policy, you know, when your child can return to school if they exhibit these symptoms. Or there's an outbreak, I mean, lice, we sent
my
home
God.
lice
La, la, la,
letters,
la,
you
la.
know, like, so anytime there was something like an RSV or a nasty cold or even a stomach bug, if it was wiping out half the class, parents would get an email or a note. I think that's important. For me, I'm curious about the student absence numbers, more so than the positivity rate.
To me, it looks like parents are taking this more, if my child was sick, stay home. Before I would have been, suck it up, buttercup, get into school. And I think people are taking this more seriously.
I think there are a lot more sick kids too.
Yeah, it's everywhere. This cold is lasting, like
So
3 weeks.
Why did we take this down from the website? Why not just make this available again?
Right.
Well, so we took it down because what our concern was that we were fueling a concern over COVID, because it was all linked to coronavirus COVID. But that's not what it is. It's other respiratory, it's really wellness, it's really
Right.
health. So I think we had it, not that it was labeled wrong, it was labeled right at the time. It's not the right label going forward. And the other piece is that.
Health trends, absentee, I don't know, what would you name it?
Yeah, so so what the principals have said is they want to track it. We still want to meet, we still want to have dialogue about it, we still want to see where we sit with our numbers. And our nurses are keeping this up to date, although you'll notice, some of the numbers are behind at Griffin anyway.
Yeah.
My numbers are behind at Griffin. The middle school is right up to date, and the high school is right up to date. But anyway, but I think we should relabel it as.
COVID and other, two separate columns?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, you have student absences,
Illness,
illness, non-COVID related, you know what I mean?
all illness.
But it shows that
That
one
includes
kid
both.
has it and 3 staff were absent, but it doesn't say whether any staff have it. So they have to be other
Well,
absences. It
so.
Couldn't it be a personal
actually,
day?
At Campbell, not a single person has tested positive from the staff angle, and there was one kiddo that had a positive result. But you still have attendance rates that are in the medium range, because of all this other stuff going around,
How do
so,
we have half absences at the staff level at LMS?
pardon me?
How do-
Half day.
Half day, go home
Time.
early?
Half
Well, we
day.
don't know if
not-
that's sick.
That's not the case at GMS or CHS, it's only at LMS.
Yeah.
I'll have to double check with Deb to see what.
But does that count personal days and stuff like that?
Yeah,
And
it's
bereavement
total-
and all that
total
other
staff
stuff?
out. I don't know if that's somebody taking a half a day or if that's a
Yeah.
part-time person. So
Oh.
I'm not sure how to interpret .5.
Yeah, I just noticed that as a difference between the
Yeah,
other
that's
two
a good
schools.
And actually, that hasn't been there before, so thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to ask about that.
Awesome.
So, looking for the board direction, do you want to continue to make this available? Is it time to,
There's been no board communications that I've seen from emails from the public. However, if you're saying it's a concern,
I've had 2 parents, I think, that have emailed me
I
about it.
don't see the risk of just putting it back out there, right? And then we can just highlight COVID versus
Just creating
other, whatever.
unnecessary work for certain people. I mean, are we reporting more than what we?
Can't we just say the amount of cases, COVID, just keep it COVID, 1, 2? Out of 356 kids, 1 kid has confirmed COVID? Like, do we have to get into all the other numbers? I don't know.
So I think if we're doing this anyway, and this is information that the district is tracking, I don't see the reason that it can't be shared with the public. If this is additional work that you're doing for the purpose of reporting,
there.
For the board,
Right.
yeah.
then I don't know that it needs to be done.
So historically, the nurses just kept track of it, right? They just kept tabs on it and they involved administrators as needed. That's where it resided. I'm going back to the,
Right.
when we only worried about lice and
Right.
whatever else.
Right.
Then it became a much more high-profile thing. I think relaxing off of it from the COVID angle makes sense, but we're still, we still do have to make these reports to the state. Our
Yeah.
nurses
Mhm.
are
Yeah.
required to do it, so they're putting the information in. The concern was, are we fueling are there anxieties that are generated by looking at the numbers? Is it,
I think people
know.
that don't want to look at it anymore aren't clicks. I would bet you'd look at the click traffic, you'd see that it's gone down
Yeah.
pretty significantly. A lot
Right.
of, where people used to check it every day and be, really be interested in it. I think there's far less people who are, oh, you can do that. Wow. Okay. He's looking at the click traffic.
yeah.
It's gone up recently, though, huh?
That's us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
That's all us.
I've opened it 4 times today.
So if this, what we're seeing here is the same format that has to be reported, then I'm fine with putting it out there as well. But if there's more on here that needs to be reported, or that if we're reporting more on here than needs to be reported, I'm in favor of scaling it
Let
back
me
to
do this.
whatever is necessary.
If you're comfortable, because I do think it's set up and we're going to be tracking it, right? But let me put it in a place that isn't a big flag called coronavirus, because that's not what it is any longer. We'll just
Put
put
it on your wellness
health
tab.
information,
Yeah.
The health
Wellness
information,
tab.
wellness, yeah,
wellness tab.
I like that.
Or the nurse
All right.
area.
Nurse corner,
Good feedback.
health policies.
All right.
Yeah.
I do think there are some families out there that are still really concerned about it, that may have underlying conditions, and for them, if we're tracking it anyway, there's absolutely no reason why we can't share it.
Under wellness is a perfect place.
Yeah.
All right, we all done there? School board
And any comments on the updated health screening? I mean, this has been, I believe it's been communicated. I think this went out at the start of the month.
Parents use their best judgment?
It changed to, so the guidance got linked to each symptom. So if you have the temperature greater, here's what you need to do, right? So that's how it's reformatted.
So the only thing I will say, and I don't care saying it, I have a kid home with COVID right now, is that it doesn't say. I do have.
You're the kid.
Yeah, the LMS kiddo.
Okay.
It doesn't say you've tested positive for COVID, you have to stay home for 5 days anymore. It's if you have these symptoms, this is what you do, and if you're in a household with anyone, this is what you do. But it doesn't say,
Stay home for 5 days? Mask.
yeah,
So what are you supposed to do?
You follow the CDC guidelines.
which is what we're doing.
Right.
And so she's out for 5 days, and it was just, okay, she'll see you on Thursday and with a mask, and that's what we're choosing to do. But when I click on this one pager, I went and looked at it, and I was like, oh, it doesn't say what you do if you're positive, which I would think we might want to add a number 3 of making that clear. Whatever
Or
that
you don't
is.
test and you send your
Because
kid to school
it
after
has
2
the,
days,
do you
which
have
is
any
what
of the
people are
following
doing.
symptoms? Unless I'm reading number 2 incorrectly, it says, have you been in a household with anyone confirmed to have COVID or a positive test result in the past 48 hours? I'm assuming that means the household member had a positive test in the last 48 hours, not the person. So it might just be
Oh,
the
so
way
I think it is wording, because I think that actually answers your question. Because if you're in a household with someone confirmed to have, it's because they've had a positive test result.
to have COVID symptoms or a positive test.
Positive test.
So that to me is, do they have symptoms or a positive test is what the or is for,
Yep.
not household member or you yourself.
So have you or a member of your household? Gotcha.
That's where I think it should be.
Yep, let me ask, I'll send it back to the nurses.
Again, I've just chosen to follow what past protocol has been, but if
symptoms-
if there's gonna be kiddos that are gonna be testing positive, we may, especially after vacation, holidays and whatnot, we just may wanna have it be clear.
So you should be in a mask.
Should.
Well,
And actually,
I'm reading it.
No, because as soon as she tested positive, I sent her to Dad's house. So yeah, I have a surgical procedure next week, and I can't get COVID. Yeah,
It's complicated.
it is.
But let's say your son has allergies. Does that mean he's suspected of having COVID and we all know he had it 60 days ago? Does that mean we all have to?
Well, no, that's what the state is trying to put
Yeah.
a stop to, because
Yeah.
you had all those presumed positive
Yeah.
things until you
Right.
could rule it out, and
So that's
they're saying you really shouldn't be doing that, because I mean, the number of tests that we've administered in our house to be negative, I'm like, we're ruling out something that we don't think it is to begin with, but
Right.
I don't know.
It's back to the personal responsibility. I mean,
Yeah.
we've chosen to test the other 2 every day, and that's what our decision is. That may not be the same decision another family makes, and that's okay. I mean, I think that's where we're at with COVID at this point.
Yep.
Is it's kind of on that personal responsibility. So
School board comments.
You want to go to public community input?
There's nobody here.
Just covering off the
All
agenda.
right. Community input?
I don't know if anybody's in the hallway or not, so.
Hello? Hello. I'm closing community input and moving on to school board comments.
I just wanted to say, there's so many good things happening in our schools right now. I keep seeing posts from the different schools, from staff members, kids working on projects. I think the presentation tonight from LMS, the LMS art teacher, was just another, there's so much good happening in our schools right now. Sometimes it feels like we have a lot of work to do, and it certainly does feel like we have a lot of work to do.
There were a lot of positives.
But I just want to recognize, the Wizard of Oz that came together district-wide was just phenomenal. The community support for that was huge. Our sports teams are doing really, really well, from LMS all the way up to CHS. I think that we have a lot to be proud of here in our town and in our school community, and I just want to say I hope everybody has a healthy and safe holiday coming up.
Agreed. There's been a lot of college acceptance letters rolling in
Yeah.
for admissions
It's
and
an
whatnot
exciting
for
time of
folks.
year.
I know, but there's a lot going on. National
just got started on
Society
it.
inductions. There really is. There's a lot going on. There's concerts, and I think it's it
right.
finally feels back to normal.
Yeah.
I guess I'll be the Debbie Downer. This is for Doug. I've done a little survey, and I'm very sad that our playground at GMS is closed 5 out of the 10 months of the year. I don't know any other elementary school that closes their playground as much as we do. In fact, I don't know any that close their playground. And I know this is probably a Primex thing or an incident that happened 12 years ago, and there was probably more to that story, but to make a group of students stare at this equipment it started last month, November, December, January, February, March, and probably half of April, we can't use playground equipment. And I know you're new here, but how can we rectify that situation?
I know you addressed that to Doug, right?
All of us.
I'm reflecting back to a committee Heidi and I served on, 4 years ago?
Yeah.
The GMS Playground Committee, and this was a key point.
We tried.
We tried. There was new equipment added that's low to the ground that kids can use.
I'm bringing it up again,
It's
4 years later.
You're right, it's
Yeah.
a Primex thing.
Yep.
That's my understanding.
Primex came to one of the meetings that
That's
we
right.
sat in and explained it, but what I
Why?
don't understand is that
Why?
Primex also insures, my guess, other school districts.
Yeah, we're not
yeah.
alone in this.
And their playgrounds
Exactly.
are open, so
They've just accepted that risk, I'm assuming.
Well, the difference is that Primex had a payout with us because there was an injury, a bad injury, and there was a large payout that was made. And so, it gets you on the radar, and that's why Primex has taken that stance. And Dave is very meticulous about making sure the fluffable mulch to however many inches, he does all that very, very seriously. But to your point, and I think there's room for us to engage in more conversation, have fresh eyes, take a look at it.
Does snow count as soft cushioning land?
No.
yeah,
They
it does
count-
not.
they
Against
count
it?
Ice.
It's
Yeah,
ice.
it's against, yeah.
But I think the thing what I'm intrigued by is, a fall from a high object is not the same as off a balance beam or something, right? And so,
Students aren't allowed on the top of that high equipment that the child fell
but
off.
I think what we have to do is really just sort of examine, is there anything on the playground? Because right now, it's
Yeah,
no playground.
no playground.
And so I think,
Well, I
give
think
us,
that's partially because it was easier to say no to none.
And there was a scarf, the scenarios where if the student's wearing a
Strings.
scarf,
It's
right?
true
And-
though. Kids
Yeah.
holding on the monkey bars with mittens that are wet. I mean, it's
But they could get stuck in a school bus door with their scarf too.
But here's the thing, how do other towns
they
do
look
it?
the other way.
So they're accepting the risk.
So for one incident 12 years ago, however long it was,
So it sounds like they're willing to put fresh
Okay.
eyes on it, have fresh conversations with Primex about it, and it can be something that maybe
Find
can be
ways
looked
that
into.
kids
We
can
can-
enjoy the
I'm gonna
playground.
add that to your plate now, Doug.
We can call a Primex, they can do a walk.
I will
with us.
say
I
if-
think we're in a difficult situation to accept the risk if they say no, because we're on record saying,
Bingo.
the problem is, if
We're on notice.
they say no.
we're aware.
Right.
Yep.
So accepting the risk is not on their behalf, it's on The school district.
It's the
behind it,
liability.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
School district. And the other piece I do recall them saying during that meeting is because the playground sits on and
Yes.
has a significant water, drainage issues, that during the winter months, that water drains into the playground and that mulch then becomes inches of ice.
Right.
And though it doesn't look like ice, it's ice because the water feeds into it.
In
and
between
s-
it type
Yeah.
of thing.
So other
Right.
districts
So it may be a
not
different
have-
issue if and when
Right.
a land purchase takes place and we're able to build a new elementary school that doesn't have water under it, that ice may not be a concern, but that was something also that was
So there's
raised.
nothing they can play on. Can we find out if there's anything they
Well,
can
that's why
play
we
on?
did the Gaga pit. That's why we did the crawling tunnels,
Yeah.
because those were low to the ground.
And they're not allowed to use those either.
I think they are allowed to use those. I thought they
Well,
were.
let us look into
Yeah,
that because.
please do.
Let's look into it,
To
let's
me,
take a walk.
You know, when you, so I was in kindergarten this week and I'm looking out the window and there were kids running around on the tarmac. There was
Yeah.
basketball and, you know,
It's not that they're
So-
just standing around with nothing to do. They
No.
do find things to do.
they find
But
stuff
they
to
could
do.
fall on the ground and crack their head open and then
And when I've been down there doing, duty
Yeah.
last year, they
the
were
teachers aren't happy.
sledding down the Leachfield.
Well, this
Right.
sledding's fun. But why is that an issue?
We gotta come up
They're
with.
gonna land
better
in
name.
ice.
Beach Park, by the way.
Do you know what I mean?
Anyway,
How come that isn't an issue if they're sliding down a hill into an ice trap?
I think it is a fair request to ask them to look into it
Yes.
again. And
Okay.
it sounds like they're willing to do
Do you want
that.
me to end with something happy?
sure.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you for all your support during my absences, and I look forward to a new year, and I hope you all have a happy, healthy new year, and holiday season. And thank you for all your work on the budget and all these other little missing pieces. And Doug, you need to take a break. Vacation.
Seriously, can we budget for
Yeah.
Doug to take a trip to Bahamas or
I think
something?
all of us
Well,
do.
that,
Yeah.
no.
We appreciate all of your transparency through this whole transition.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. You know, I have some time coming up, so.
No,
it'll
that's
be
good. I just have two things. There is a Campbell High School wrestling fundraiser at Romano's on December 21st, and 20% of the proceeds go to the CHS wrestling program. So
that
inviting
on
people
Facebook?
there,
on my
dine-in
calendar.
sales, yeah. And then just happy holidays to everybody, and make sure to give grace to all of your neighbors.
Can you bring it by? Pop it in my mailbox.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Talking about Heidi's daughter?
Yeah, I was like,
Where you going? COVID, I don't know.
what's going on?
Well, she has COVID.
She doesn't. That's the other one.
Okay.
She's good.
All right, I lost my tab,
Oh,
sorry.
sorry, I closed out too.
And,
So are we
do you have any comments, Mr.
making a
Cutter?
motion to go into non-public?
We are making a
So
motion.
moved.
All those in favor?
Second.
Second and
Aye. The dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee, or the disciplining of such employee, or the investigation of any charges against him or her, unless the employee affected, one, has a right to a meeting, and two, requests the meeting be open, in which case the request shall be granted. B, the hiring of any person as a public employee, matters which, if discussed in public, would likely adversely affect the reputation of any person other than a member of the body or agency itself, unless such person requests an open meeting.
Yes.
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 Those in favor? Yes, yes, yes.
All right, everyone have a good night and happy holidays.
Yeah, see ya, let's go. No.